Franklin Arias is a Worcester Red Stocking. It's finally happened. Franklin Arias has been promoted to Worcester. Happened this past Thursday night. Was first day in Worcester was on Friday, which coincidentally I was there for. Also, Justin Gonzales got into a little fight and then responded with a walk-off homer. We're going to talk about all of that and more on this episode of the Pesky Report Minor League Show. My name is Derek. I am here with Hunter. Let's dive straight into it.
Like, this is called the Pesky Report.
This episode of the Pesky Report is episode 604, brought to you by Beyond the Monster. We are also brought to you by TJ Stats, advanced MLB stats and tools, including pitcher summaries, prospect rankings, and live pitch data. Head on over to tjstats.ca and use code PESKY for 25% off your first month. That is code PESKY, P-E-S-K-Y, as in the name of this podcast. And that is tjstats.ca, not .com. We're going to roll right into this, Hunter. Franklin Arias, obviously, we've been waiting for it. It has been, I feel like months of me being like, wait till the All-Star break, wait till the All-Star break, wait till the All-Star break. I feel like the Red Sox maybe at this point were just like, oh, yeah, maybe there's this guy on the Pesky Report saying wait till the All-Star break, so we're going to make you wait a little bit longer. But in all seriousness, though, the All-Star break wasn't that far off. So, hey, I'm not saying I was right because I wasn't right, but I wasn't totally off. I said All-Star break at the earliest, so technically, that part was right because it didn't happen before. But obviously, when a potential, depending on how you look at it, top 5 prospect in baseball gets promoted to AAA, puts you one step away from the big leagues. In Franklin Arias' case, it's a big deal, and I think it's even bigger deal for the Red Sox right now, just because of how just the vibe as a whole has shifted around the entire organization, not just the big league team, the entire organization. I'll hand it over to you, Hunter. Just kind of initial thoughts on the Arias promotion. Obviously, a deserved promotion, but what's kind of the excitement level for Arias, for seeing Arias at Worcester now?
Yeah, I mean, the vibes kind of, it feels again like the when Roman Anthony got the promotion. We're at a strange spot for the Red Sox where there's all these trade rumors happening right now for the Red Sox looking at shortstops. There's a bunch of reports. Obviously, the Red Sox just made a trade for Curtis Mead. He does not play shortstop. He's a third baseman slash second baseman. Rumors that he could just DH. Where's he playing today? I know he's batting second, but do you know where he was playing in the lineup? I know you saw the lineup.
I think it's second base.
Okay, so he's playing second base. Okay. So there was like the report today that the Red Sox are apparently actively shopping for a shortstop in a notably thin shortstop market. So that obviously gets people excited for the thought of Franklin Arias potentially still coming up at some point this year. There was like the report that they were actively looking at Jeremy Pena, and the Astros shot that down. They've been talking about Zach Neto. There was like the rumor that they were linked to Ellie De La Cruz. So Franklin Arias being one stop away from Fenway Park is extremely exciting. He has all the tools. He's everything you would absolutely want in a shortstop. It seemed like obviously you were there, but through the TV, it seemed like Worcester was incredibly excited to have him there. He got a standing ovation when he came up to bat, his first at bat. I noticed that his walk-up song was Air Force Ones from Nelly, which was very exciting for me, Nelly and Murphy Lee. Just the fact that he even knows that song. I don't know if that's his regular walk-up song. Usually when you watch on TV, you don't really get to notice the walk-up songs because they usually don't really like do the whole production for a walk-up song. Like they literally like really gave the whole production of like showing his walk up, and the announcers weren't talking and they were like zooming into the crowd, and like usually they don't do that for someone's walk up. especially in a minor league game. So it was really cool that they did that. And when I've gone to Portland games when he was there, I've only ever gone to away games, so it's not his walk up song. For away games, they're not giving players their walk up songs. If I'm going to a game in Reading or Somerset or wherever I'm going, the away team picks walk up songs for those players. So it's not the player getting to pick their own walk up song. So I don't know if that's Franklin Arias' actual walk up song or if they just picked that for him. But if that's his actual walk up song, that's incredible that a 20-year-old picked that song. That makes me very happy. But yeah, it seemed like the vibe was incredible. Obviously, he went, I believe it was over 8 on the weekend. But we were talking about it a little bit beforehand. He did not look overmatched at all. He had a couple of really hard hit balls that the fans in the crowd definitely seemed to think were going to go down for hits that they ended up not going down for hits. But like he had a sac fly. He brought in a run on a ground ball that went through the first baseman's legs, I think, or the second baseman's. I think it was the first baseman's legs for an error. And that drove in a run. So like he made things happen. And I mean, again, just he didn't look overmatched, and it's really exciting to have him again, just one step away from Fenway Park. And yeah, it's a perfect time to have him there with everything going on, but it's also going to be an annoying time to have him there for the discourse of we're going to be getting a lot of the, Franklin Arias, like the Red Sox need Franklin Arias now. But also with the Red Sox being a week away from the trade deadline, we really won't need to actually, now that I'm saying that out loud, we really won't need to hear about that for very long. Because I am assuming the Red Sox will be making a move for a shortstop. So that's actually a really good thing because if/when they do make a move, that should take a ton of pressure off Arias to just be able to play shortstop, maybe get a couple games at second base and just learn, grow, get ready for the majors without having any, major pressure to be expected to come up and help the major league team in any significant way this season. Because if the Red Sox do make a move to help the major league team make a playoff push, there won't be any expectations for him to be here this year.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Arias is like there truly is no rush. I mean that straight and like legit. Like I've given the Bogarts comp before just on the fact of like, oh, like age 20 season starts in Double-A. Now he is in Worcester. This is not me saying Franklin Arias is going to follow that Bogarts trajectory and start in the postseason for the Red Sox. This is not. It's not that. Now, I'll put it like this. I mentioned this to you before I started recording, Hunter. It's not impossible that Franklin Arias could be in the big leagues this year. It's not impossible. It's highly unlikely. I'd say there's a less than 1% chance that Arias is in the big leagues this year. Is it non-zero? Yes, but like it's also a non-zero chance that like I go and throw a baseball one time and blow out my elbow. Like it's non-zero. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. So like I think that's kind of the big thing here. I with Arias, like there's no rush to get him to the big leagues. Some people have been throwing around. I've seen it a little bit on like Twitter, for example. It's like, oh well, they just keep him in the minors. They don't have to add him to the 40-man, and then if there's a lockout, he can still play in the minors next year. True, but like also to a Red Sox team trying to win a World Series this year isn't going to care about that. It's whether or not is he going to make the team better, and it's kind of hard to trust someone at such a young age, especially at shortstop, which is such a key position, and especially when the Red Sox, like, they do have Trevor Story coming back. They are going to have Marcelo Meyer coming back. Might they want to send Meyer to Worcester? Yes, but like they might want to do that, right? Help Meyer. Okay, get you a reset, especially too after a rehab assignment. They're going to want to send him to Worcester anyways for rehab, regardless. There's been the talk of like, oh, maybe Meyer will go down in Worcester, especially if they do bring in a shortstop before the deadline. It would make sense for Meyer to play every day in Worcester as opposed to, being a bench guy in Boston. But there's no need for Arias. It's not like we don't have any other shortstop who's better than him in the system, like in the organization. It's hard to take that risk and say Arias is the best shortstop they have just because he has only done it in Double-A. And yes, the Red Sox very much view Double-A as kind of that peak of your development level. But I talked to Iggy Suarez about it. I asked Iggy Suarez about this in the manager meeting in Worcester on Friday. Because on the idea of like the organization has been kind of somewhat public about how they feel that Double-A is kind of that last development level, and then Triple-A is okay. You need to be ready to play in the big leagues. But I kind of mentioned this to Iggy, and Iggy kind of reiterated back to me where it's like, yeah, you're trying to get ready for the big leagues, but like you are still developing, right? Like it doesn't mean you stop developing. You don't just stop and that's the player you are for the rest of your career. You do continue to develop. The bigger thing in AAA is now there's a lot more situational stuff. And Worcester, if they're down by 1 as opposed to down by 10, it's going to change how they play the game. Whereas before Worcester, but especially in the lower levels of the minors, whether you're up 1, down 1, or up 10 or down 10, you're still playing the same way. You're playing with the approach to develop and become the best player in the future. When you get to Worcester, now it is kind of, okay, situational, because when you get to the big leagues, you're going to have to deal with those kind of situations. And the only way to be comfortable in them is to get the reps, right? So, and is Franklin Arias going to be bunting in Worcester to sack bunt someone over? Odds are no. But in general, right, you're much more likely to see a guy have a sack bunt in Worcester to move a guy into scoring position as opposed to in Portland even, right? Does it also have to do with the fact there are veterans and MLB vets there? Yes. But also, like I said, it is getting you ready for the big leagues, right? Maybe Arias isn't the one putting the bunt down, right? But maybe Arias is the one who's moving up on the bunt. Going first to second. Okay, now you got to read the bunt off the bat, right? You're not doing that a ton in the other levels, situationally, let's say situationally, there's a runner on first and third. At another level, they might just, regardless, even if it's a 1-run game, at another level, they might say, hey, no outs, we're just going to turn the double play. We're okay with it becoming a tie game. In Worcester, they might pull the infield in and try and stop the run from scoring, right? Depending on like what inning, if they're in like the 8th inning or even the 9th inning, right, with no outs, 2 corners on corners, they might pull the infield in. So there is a difference in that, right? It doesn't mean Arias is done developing. Everyone technically is still developing as a player, even in the big leagues, right? We've seen it with a guy like Curtis Mead now coming to the Red Sox, right? Well, I'm going to touch on that a couple other people too, because I do want to bring up the Curtis Mead trade for development purposes and the idea of like development not being linear, which we've mentioned so many times on the show. But I think with Arias too, like this isn't like he's in Worcester now, fast track him. Like in some ways, like whether or not there's no rush, right? Give him the time. If it happens, great, right? If he does get that call to the big leagues, if they need him, if they think he is going to make the team better by September, right? Hypothetically, go for it, right? But there also isn't it's not like they need to call him up this year. There's no rush. And there's not even a need for him to be on like the opening day roster next year. There's not a need for it, right? Would it be great? Yes, but it has to happen. And I think once you kind of take that kind of, in some ways too, it's a little bit of a want, right? Because I would love to see, I want to see Franklin Arias in the big leagues. I'd love to see it, right? It'd be super fun. But at the same time, too, we do have to also think about the player as well and what's best for the player. And also what's best for the player is going to be but what's best for the organization, because the organization wants Franklin Arias to be a good big leaguer for a long time, right? You want your top 5 prospect in baseball to, in all honesty, with the top 5 prospect in baseball, you're hoping they're going to be they're going to play for you for 10 plus years. So in that case with Arias, it's great. It's great. It's amazing he's in Worcester, but like, let him have his time in Worcester, right? There's a reason AAA is a thing. There's a reason you don't just go from AA to the big leagues. Just let Arias have his time. I'm sure, he went over 8, like you mentioned, Hunter. He wasn't overmatched at all. But like it's gonna come, right? No, if he this next week, even if he goes 2 for 20, right, it's fine, right? Like there's no fast tracking, and there's no need to fast track him, especially with the Red Sox being in the shortstop trade market. And when you kind of look at their team right now, if they add a shortstop, there isn't really a clear spot for Arias unless, God forbid, someone gets injured, which, you never know, can happen, but you hope doesn't, right? Doesn't hurt to have extra depth in AAA, but also too, like I said, you don't want to call him up just for the sake of calling up. You don't want to rush him. There's no point in rushing him. With that, though, obviously Arias getting promoted was kind of the big news of the week. Something that started to catch traction later this past week, and especially I think yesterday and into today, Christian Campbell. He's on a 12-game on-base streak. I think it's an 8-game hit streak. And this past week, Christian Campbell, 8 for 13, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 4 walks with 5 strikeouts. And this you kind of look at Arias, right? You don't want to rush him. Christian Campbell a little bit can kind of show, but you don't want to rush a guy just for the sake of rushing him. But like also this kind of goes back to like the Curtis Mead trade, right? Because Curtis Mead was called up at 22 with the Rays, never really got consistent playing time, struggled when he did. And at that age, like, it can be difficult, right? And it is a big jump to the big leagues, especially when, Mead with the Rays, arguably top 20 prospect in baseball. There are a lot of expectations put on him, especially too, considering, the Rays had just had, a guy who shall not be named debut and was looking like one of the best shortstops in baseball kind of right off the get-go. And then also too, you kind of look down the road a couple years, and then Junior Caminero pops off for the Rays, right off ripping the big leagues. But like, it doesn't always happen like that, right? And Curtis Mead's breakout this year, Curtis Mead's still only 25 years old, and I think when we look at Christian Campbell, in some ways, like, there is still, you almost have to view him somewhat still like a prospect just on the basis of Campbell. He's only 24 years old. He's not going to turn 25 until next year, right? And with that, like, this is not me saying, just let Campbell sit in Worcester for the next 2 years until he's in age 25 season. No. But what I'm saying is, Campbell had a really good first month in the big leagues, maybe a little bit longer than a month, and then he struggled, right? That's fine. Has he struggled in Worcester? Yeah, like he has. There have been struggles. There's been continued struggles at times. These last couple of weeks, though, really feels like he is turning a corner. They have really kind of worked with him on a swing. There's been very much concerned effort with Campbell. And I know we're saying, they're working on a swing. Haven't they been working on a swing all year? But like, sometimes it's not as simple as saying they're working on a swing, right? Your swing is also going to be based on feel as well. Like, you might be feeling it one week, and the next week you just don't feel it, right? It doesn't feel, something feels off. Sometimes it's something you find and then you lose, and then it comes back to you, and it's not always the same. I think of there have been players throughout, like, there are players who have gone careers without a specific set batting stance. They just kind of tinker and change things, and as their careers go, to feel comfortable. Like, I think Cal Ripken was one of those guys where it's like, kind of just tinkered, and as his career went on, things slightly changed, but it was never like a big change. With things, from start to beginning, you notice a big change, but it was never one big change at once. You just kind of, other guys stick with the same swing and batting stance their entire career, right? Like, there's no one way to do it. There's no one way to swing a baseball bat. Yes, swing it through the strike zone, duh, but like, hit the ball, duh. But like, there's no, one exact way to, stand in the batter's box. There's no one exact way to have swing mechanics, right? And at the end of the day, it feels like with Christian Campbell, it's like, you look at Curtis Mead. Jordan Walker is another big proof of it, right? Just because a guy struggles early doesn't mean you give up on him. Now, Walker, in some sense, especially last year and especially this year, the Cardinals really given the chance to play every day because the Cardinals haven't been as good. And then Meade this year with the Nationals, a Nationals team that, the Nationals aren't World Series like contenders in the sense of like they're not like favorites to the World Series. They haven't been great the last few years, right? Meade got a chance to play every day, right? And with Christian Campbell, like a chance to play every day might not come at the big league level this year, next year, who knows, right? Who knows when it's going to come? It could come. Who knows? God forbid, there might be an injury bug. Maybe next year comes around, God forbid there's not a lockout. And maybe the Red Sox maybe Christian Campbell's, not even the first guy they expect to call up from Worcester. But maybe injuries happen or something happen or who knows what, and Christian Campbell's needed. And then maybe he comes up to the big leagues and plays well, right? And then builds on it, right? You never know what's going to happen because Campbell's so young. I think there is that it comes back to development not being linear. You look at Curtis Meade, you look at Jordan Walker. There's some players, and there's been other players too throughout the history of time who have had struggles in the big leagues. I mean, hell, the Minnesota Twins couldn't figure out David Ortiz. Like David Ortiz, and also here's the whole thing: people being like, "Oh, Curtis Meade got DFA." One, DFA and being released are two different things. One, especially at that age, because most of the time it's to try and send you to the minors because you have no options left. But the Minnesota Twins released David Ortiz, right? Like it. You want to talk about development not being linear, right? Sometimes it's not just the talent. Sometimes it's also the opportunity, right? Or sometimes and I think that's the thing too. Like with Christian Campbell, like we've seen the talent be there. It's just finding it on a consistent basis. I know, like I said, the swing has been something they've changed and they've been working with, really since almost his entire time in the organization, in all honesty. Not just kind of after his struggles with the big leagues. And like I said, development's not linear. There's no path where you can follow and say everything's going to go exactly this way. It's going to be a smooth process. It's not, right? It's not a smooth process, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing with Christian Campbell. There's no what's the word? There's no when he's struggling, there's no worries because in my eyes, just on the sense of, even if you're struggling, you can grow off of it, right? And he's at the age where when I say you want to look at him like a prospect, more so in the sense of look at him like a prospect in the sense of let's focus on his development here, right? Let's not focus on the end result all the time, because Christian Campbell could have a week where he goes 2 for 20, but like he's hitting the ball hard and the at bats are good. He also could have a week where he hits 500, but it's bloop singles and whatnot, right? I'm not saying, he's been hitting bloop singles recently. He's been hitting the ball hard recently. I think he had 2 really good hit balls Friday night when I was there. But it's very much, let's look at the process here. Let's look at how the results are coming, not just what the results are. I think that's kind of the big thing here with Campbell. There's no, don't get me wrong. He's had an amazing week. Yes. There's a difference between having a 2-homer week, but it's like, okay, you did 2 homers, but had 2 homers, but that was kind of it. And, those 2 homers weren't might have been meatballs down the middle. Like Christian Campbell has had legitimately this entire, I really say the last 2 weeks, he's been playing really well. It's not just a lucky hit here, lucky hit there. Okay, now he gets a hold of one, and then he kind of no, he's been hitting the ball hard consistently. And I think that is, you're hoping that's a sign. You're hoping it continues, right? But it's part of his development, right? And I think that's what we have to focus on. There's a reason he's in Worcester. It's to develop, right? It's to kind of get back to the Christian Campbell that we all fell in love with, but not just that, to then get better than that, right? You don't just want Christian Campbell that first month of 2025. You want Campbell to get back to that and then continue to get better. Look at Jordan Walker, for example. Jordan Walker's playing the best baseball he ever has. Curtis Meade's playing the best baseball he ever has, right? Those guys both in the past have had short stretches in the big leagues where they've looked good, but they've also had a lot of times where they've been overmatched, right? And both guys now, look at them now, are having career years, right? You're looking at Curtis Meade, who at third base was, top 5 offensive third baseman, bordering on top 3 offensive third baseman in baseball. And Jordan Walker won the damn home run derby and has been the Cardinals' best player this year, right? It's development isn't linear. That's the biggest thing, right? And we mention it so many times, but these are real world examples of it. And I think sometimes we forget it. And I say we, not like just everyone in general, right? Sometimes forgets that, baseball is not easy and development isn't linear. And so when a prospect like it's Campbell struggles, or hell, Marcelo Meyer struggles, and now there's talks of the Red Sox of maybe he's going to end up in AAA the rest of the year. That's okay, right? Not everyone's, going to blast off the moment they touch the big leagues.
Yeah, and there's other examples too. You could look at Max Muncy. You could look at Spencer Torkelson. You could look at Jose Batista. You could argue PCA. He went like 0 for 17 to start his career, and then he had like not a great rookie year. CJ Abrams, who everybody is dying for the Red Sox to trade for. Up until this year,
Zach Neto,
people were calling him like not a great baseball player, and now everybody's like begging the Red Sox to trade for him.
Both him and Zach Neto had that egregious leg kick at the beginning of his career. That like really caused some struggles. Like everyone talks about Christian Campbell's swing being trouble. Zach Neto had the worst leg kick ever in terms of
Zach
results.
Neto's leg kick still isn't great, but
it's still not great. But like
Joe Adell couldn't hit like 150 to save his life, and was on the verge of not being a AAA player, and now he's hitting like 35 homers a year and robbing 10 home runs a year. So like there's a ton of cases of this. Like it's ridiculous to give up on a 24-year-old because he had a phenomenal first month in Major League Baseball and then struggled since then. Like he's still 24 years old. I know it's been very ugly for the most part since then, but like I feel like people get really excited and then want to match the excitement with a ridiculous level of it. I feel like there's people who want to offset the people who get excited by being more angry than the people who were excited. And also, just some of those other numbers. I know you said like 8-game hitting streak, 12-game on base streak. In July, 364, 509, 591 slashing. So on June 24th, so entering June 25th, he had a 618 OPS. So today, Monday, July 27th, he has a 709 OPS. I know that's still nothing to like throw a parade over, but a nearly 100-point jump in a month is pretty damn impressive. Like that goes to show you how much of a difference he's made. And every once in a while, I'll have someone from the organization reach out to me, and they will want to show me something or tell me something about a prospect, and it's usually like a much younger prospect. It's usually like someone coming up from the FCL or the DSL. For example, somebody reached out to me about Sadbiel Delzine, and they were like super excited about him making his single A debut, and they were, telling me all these things and like, oh yeah, there's a lot to work on, but like the raw stuff is clearly there. And I had 2 different people reach out to me about Christian Campbell recently. And, one of them was just telling me like this, that, and the other thing about things that they've been working on. And like, usually it's not the 24-year-old former prospect that people are super juiced to talk about. So to me, that tells you the work he's been putting in. That tells you like the changes he's made. That tells you like the electricity's back. It tells you because this is a guy who just last year was not just one of the top prospects in baseball, but again, there were scouts around the league who were willing to say he was the best prospect I've ever seen.
He was the hottest prospect in baseball. He won minor league baseball MVP in 2024, entered 25 as a bona fide top 10 prospect in the sport. And
there were scouts that literally were saying he was the best prospect they had ever seen.
And there were scouts saying he was the best prospect they'd ever seen. Now, to be fair, best prospect I've ever seen is a little bit like take with a grain of salt because like I think like in that poll, I think like half the people polled said Byron Buxton, which this is not a shot at Byron Buxton because I do kind of believe a fully healthy over the course of his career, Byron Buxton could have challenged
he
Mike
would have been a
Trout.
freak. Yeah.
Would have been a freak and a half. But I think Campbell was very highly touted for a reason, right? It does kind of go back to Arias too, in a sense of like, it's great. It is great to be a top prospect, but like also too, like there's no like it is. We're not like this isn't linear. Arias has had the big jump in power this year. That's also not linear, right? If it was linear, Arias would have had a slow kind of progression in the power. The power jumped, right? And it's a great thing, but you also sometimes see development stagnate at times too, right? Christian Campbell was kind of a little bit of that too, where the 2024 was absurd, right? Let's be completely honest. It was arguably the best. It might have been the best year in the Red Sox farm system from anyone this century, right? Like who else are you putting there? And like the guy, like I said, the guy won minor league MVP, and multiple scouts said he was the best prospect they'd ever seen. Like, and so with that, right, you kind of like it's Red Sox fans in some ways, and I hate to say it, with how we view our own players, and not that this isn't like it. This isn't a new thing, but like in some way, Red Sox fans look at Yankees fans and go, "Oh, you just value all your own players too highly," and blah 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 blah, and whatever. And it's like, in some ways, we do that too, right? Like, which is fine, right? It's fine. There's nothing wrong. I think people lose their minds about, "Oh, you value this guy too highly. He's not actually that." It's like, but like it's especially with homegrown players, like. There is that because, like, in all honesty, like Christian Campbell, like he is a Red Sox guy drafted by the Red Sox, has been with the Red Sox his entire time, right? Like, there is that, right? Xander Bogaerts for years, like that, like year where like his contract was expiring, and even the year after, people were losing their minds over Bogaerts, and it's like, but like Bogaerts was a Red Sox. Bogaerts had been with the organization since his teens. Like, he was a Red Sox guy, right? And I'm not saying people like saw Bogaerts like too highly or too lowly, but what I mean more so is like, I guarantee if the Red Sox could have gotten, could have taken Bogaerts and dealt him 1-for-1 for a guy who is slightly better than him, Red Sox fans would have said no because Bogaerts is their guy, right? And that is hell. Like, I mean, look at like. Would I trade, Roman Anthony for someone who is slightly better than him? No, right? Like Roman Anthony is our guy. Would I, would I trade Peyton Tolley for Chase Burns? As great as Chase Burns is, I want my guy. I want Peyton Tolley, right? Like, and I think, and that might be a little bit, the Tolley to Burns thing might be a little bit extreme, but like at the same time, like it's not really, because like, the Yankees fans did it with like Clint Frazier, and they were like, we did it with Michael Chavis, right? That like 2-month stretch of Chavis going off at the big league level, everyone was saying he was going to be the Red Sox like second baseman for the foreseeable future, and obviously, unfortunately, we know how it ended for Chavis. Hell, Bobby Dahlbeck, right? Like, it's not a bad thing, right? We want to root for the guys on our team, and in some ways too, we see them, we put them in sometimes higher than maybe we should, right? Just because, yeah, I'd rather have, I don't know. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. You look at like shortstop prospects. If you were to tell me like, let's use Leo DeVries, right? Leo DeVries is a year younger, also at Double-A. He's at Double-A, not Arias, not also at Double-A, but Arias is in Double-A now. But if you were telling me, oh, Franklin Arias or Leo DeVries, as great as I think Leo DeVries is, I'd be like, give me Arias, right? Arias is our guy, and I think that look at all the initial like reaction to the Curtis Mead trade, right? Connolly Early being our guy, everyone started freaking out. Like, oh my God, they got fleeced, blah, blah, blah. And then you start kind of doing the digging and you really kind of try to take a neutral point of view. And you're like, okay, this trade makes sense, right? I understand it. And I think, with someone like Christian Campbell, after that first month in the big leagues, people were ready to anoint him, the best second baseman the Red Sox have had since Dustin Pedroia. And, he's going to solve all our second base issues that we've had since Dustin Pedroia got slid into by Manny Machado. And, in some ways, yes, we hope for that, right? But, sometimes we do have to be a little bit realistic. Things take time. And also, too, there's also the flip side of things, right? Where you have the people who view these guys really highly, right? But then you also too have the people who just can't wait to see the Red Sox get rid of people, or every single prospect is gonna fail because they're not proven at the big league level and whatnot. You have both sides of the coin, right? Which is fine. People are entitled to their own opinions, but I think too, and sometimes what we do is we let our own opinions kind of overshadow the facts. And then sometimes we also look for confirmation bias of this is what we think, so what's proving my point? Instead of just looking at the facts from a neutral perspective and saying, okay, where does it lie? Because you look at Christian Campbell this season, he struggled mightily really up until that June 25th date. Since then, he's been really darn good. I think that you could very much look at that and go, okay, there's been a change. What is the change? We don't truly know, which is fine, right? But it goes back to the whole development's not linear thing, right? It doesn't, things don't just happen just for, things don't happen immediately all the times. They take time. Sometimes guys up and then he's down and he kind of goes back up and he's back down, right? And it's a little bit of a roller coaster, right? It happens. And I think that's the biggest thing, especially with Campbell right now, where he is. There's no pressure for him to get back to the big leagues and hurry up and rush back, right? Same thing with even you look at Marcelo eventually, right? There's not necessarily especially if the Red Sox do go out and get a shortstop, right? You look at Marcelo and you go, okay, let's get to Worcester, let's play every day and let's figure it out, right? Now you know what you need to work on. And I think that is also a big thing too, right? Campbell gets to the big leagues, has a really good month and gets exposed. Okay, how are we gonna learn from that? How are we gonna, if you're the Red Sox, you got to be thinking, how are we learning from that? How are we gonna make him a better player so when he does get back to the big leagues, he's prepared and he's ready to tackle it, right? That's kind of where it is. And fan perception or not of Christian Campbell or any prospect, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we say. It doesn't matter what anyone says. What really matters at the end of the day is how the org feels about a guy and, the opportunities he's going to get and what he does with those opportunities. And Christian Campbell right now has a really good opportunity in terms of playing every day in Worcester, not having the spotlight on him, and it also does help when the big league team's playing well, that the spotlight really kind of shifts to the big league team as opposed to kind of trying to find all the negatives. Unless you listen to certain radio shows, and they'll always look for the negatives. But, that's besides the point. We don't like to look at the negatives here. We always try to stay on the positives. But it's good for Campbell to kind of be out of the spotlight in some ways, right? And, he has a chance to really kind of overcome the challenges that he has faced in his development, which are totally fine, right? Totally normal. It's, yeah, some guys don't have the extremely absurd first month in the big leagues with a big contract extension that Campbell had, but at the same time, there's been, like you mentioned, Hunter, and we both mentioned this, but there's been countless big league players who have struggled early on and have overcome those struggles. Yes, it might take a year or two, right? Maybe it takes 3 years, who knows, right? But they overcome those struggles and they end up turning into good big leaguers, really good big leaguers sometimes. And I think that's the hope with Christian Campbell, right? That, Curtis Mead's going to be playing second base this year. Who knows what's going to happen at second base next year? Maybe Curtis Mead plays second base next year. Maybe he's a DH. Who knows, right? You look at shortstop. You look kind of Arias, Meyer, etc. Okay, maybe they get a shortstop. Maybe they don't. Who knows, right? Nobody knows what the future is going to hold. Hell, there might not even be a damn big league season next year. Who knows, right? So in that sense, with these guys, development isn't linear. Let it play out. Let the process play out. Obviously, yes, immediate returns would be great, right? But if every single player ever gave immediate returns, then it's not realistic, right? Nothing's ever perfect. You're not going to get the perfect prospect. Hell, Yordan Alvarez has been, arguably the best player in baseball this year outside of, Shohei Ohtani, because Shohei Ohtani's not human. Yordan Alvarez has a big hole in his game. He sucks defensively. The Astros just happened to DH him this year, right? Hell, even Shohei Ohtani's not perfect, right? Shohei Ohtani's not leading the league in batting average. Okay, that's fine. He's not always sometimes his health, it makes it, impossible to be a two-way player for the entirety of a season, right? Okay, but like when he has pitched this year, he's been a Cy Young candidate, and he's gonna win the MVP most likely. So like, no player's perfect, right? They're gonna have holes in their game. They're gonna struggle at times. That's fine. Hell, Jarren Duran at the big league level struggling. You know what? 2 years ago, Jarren Duran was an MVP candidate. You look at Jarren Duran now, it's like, okay, yes, he's struggling, but like he's had his struggles before and he's overcame them in the past, right? Just because he's struggling doesn't mean he can't turn a corner. Like I said, Jarren Duran's a great example of it, in all honesty, right? Because he had struggles early on. You look at, that godforsaken Blue Jays game, which, just might as well was like might have been the worst game this decade for the Red Sox. Like Duran had his struggles, but then you go to 2024 and you look at the year he had there, and it's like, oh, like he overcame that. He's had his struggles this year. Doesn't mean he can't overcome them, right? We've seen how good he can be, and Christian Campbell's the same sense. We've seen how good he can be, not over a full year like Duran, but like we've seen it in the minor leagues in that month in the big leagues. We've seen how good Christian Campbell can be. Right? There's no reason not to think he couldn't get back to that. He can. It's just those things take time. It's not an overnight thing, which is fine. We've talked a lot on kind of Campbell, and I know we've got a lot else. We're 40 minutes in. We're over 40 minutes in. But I will kind of go back to you, Hunter. Any kind of final thoughts on Arias or Campbell or just player development in general before we kind of move into the rest of Worcester?
Nope.
All right, so we're going to hit the rest of Worcester here. Just kind of some of the highlights. Worcester had a very good offensive week. So I will first mention Alan Castro had a multi-hit game with me in performance. A multi-hit performance with me in attendance. One of those hits was a grounder that did hit the runner for runner's interference. But you know what? It still counts as a hit. So I guess we take him how we can. I guess. But Alec Castro, 6 for 18. He had a homer and a double this week. Nate Eaton had a homer, and Andrew Kisner and Worcester had a homer. There's not a ton prospect-wise in Worcester just because, as we mentioned before, it's a lot of big league depth. Totally fine. But on the prospect side, I feel like we have to touch on Tyler McDonough. So this week he went 4 for 11 with a double, 4 RBIs, 5 walks, 3 strikeouts. Also stole a base. It was kind of a shock at the beginning of this year when Tyler McDonough wasn't in Worcester to start the year. Was a numbers thing, obviously. Like we know that. It wasn't for the lack of him not belonging. Tyler McDonough, though, I talked to a couple like of the other like kind of media people at Worcester or whatnot. I was like, and I very much feel like Tyler McDonough, like, not saying the Red Sox are going to call him up this year, but God forbid if they got to the point where, okay, we need someone who can play wherever we need him to play on any given day and is going to kind of battle and grind and, can be productive. Like, Tyler McDonough's a good option. Like, he really is. Like, does this mean saying Tyler McDonough is going to get called up to the big leagues? No, right? Because there are other guys ahead of him, other guys on the 40-man roster ahead of him. But if the Red Sox needed to go to Tyler McDonough this year, I would not be, I would sit here and go, you know what? This is a guy who deserves it and has played really well and is ready for it, right? And I think sometimes we forget about, I feel like the kind of utility guy or super utility guy even, but really the utility guy off the bench has really become like a lost art in some ways because, especially with kind of a lot of teams platooning guys. And okay, we're going to platoon our left fielder, so we have a right-handed hitting left fielder and a left-handed hitting out left fielder. Okay, we're going to platoon our second baseman, so now we have a backup second baseman who's playing, might be playing 2 or 3 games a week, and we obviously are going to have a backup catcher, and now we get like another backup infielder, but they're not really a utility guy. Maybe they're a corner infielder or whatnot, but I feel like we've lost a little, we've lost a little bit in baseball, the kind of utility guy off the bench who any given day could play any position. Obviously, when you think super utility, you think more of like a Ben Zobrist type. But even like your Brock Holt types, right? Kind of, they don't really you look at the Red Sox bench right now. I mean, like Anthony Siegler's on the bench. You have one of Wong or Narvaez, right? One of your 2 catchers. And then you have Romy Gonzalez if he's not platooning. And then I'm forgetting. Who am I forgetting? There's someone I'm forgetting, and it's bothering me now because I'm drawing a blank off the top of my head because I was going to say Sung Chae Chang, but he went back to Worcester. Oh, Jahmai Jones. That's the other one. But Jahmai Jones also can platoon, right? And is really only an outfielder now. Doesn't really play infield anymore. Tyler McDonough is a guy where if you need him to play second base, you need him to play short. Hell, I'd even go and say you can put him at third if needed. Throw him in any of the outfield spots. He'll be like, he can play all over the place, right? I think the last guy that we've seen with the Red Sox be able to do that is Kike, but he was playing every day, right? And most of the time he was playing in the same position, right? Most of the time Kike was playing in center, and then he did that stretch at shortstop, which we don't know how that turned out.
Don't bring it up.
Well, I bring it up more so in the sense of just in terms of like Kike wasn't moving around. The thing that made Kike so valuable, and don't get me wrong, Kike in center, especially in 2021, was amazing. Don't get me wrong, right? But where a guy like Kike brought so much value to the Dodgers in his time with the Dodgers, and even now, is because one day you can stick him at second. The next day you can throw him at third. Hell, you need to stick him at shortstop for a day. That's fine. We're going to throw him in center field. We're going to throw him in left field. We're going to throw, hell, throw him at first base for a game, right? Kike can play it pretty much everywhere. And that's why he was so valuable, right? Brock Holt, same way, right? With the Red Sox, where, oh, you're sitting Bogarts for a game. We're going to throw Brock Holt at short. Oh, we're sitting Raffy. Okay, we're going to throw Brock Holt at third. We need a second baseman. Okay, Brock Holt's playing second base today. We need a center fielder. Throw Brock Holt there, right? We need a left field here, right? Brock Holt literally could just play anywhere. And it was really good. It was really valuable to have. And I feel like we've gone away from that. Baseball has gone away from that. But a guy like Tyler McDonough has a chance to kind of be that type of guy where any given day, plug and play him where you need him, or use him off the bench, defensive replacement, whatever. With how Chad Tracy's been operating lately, where we're pinch hitting or maybe whatnot, right? It's also good to have a guy on the bench where you can just stick with the glove anywhere because, let's say, let's say Andrew Monasterio is playing shortstop and you need a lefty off the bench, and maybe your only lefty you have available at that point is Masataka Yoshida. Masa can't go play shortstop. I love Masa,
My issue with this is just they're clearly going to make moves at the deadline. Yeah, so but I mean, I completely understand what you're saying, but I mean, in general, though, the Red Sox don't IKF kind of did it for the Yankees, where they kind of started playing him in center. And obviously, I'm not saying Tyler McDonough is going to happen this year or even or whatnot, but I just more so mean he's been playing so well in Worcester and is kind of flown under the radar just because he's never been, never will be a top prospect. He really is that, like I said, his path to the big leagues is being that guy that can kind of move around and be versatile. And there might not be room there for it this year, but going into even next year, right? You look at Tyler McDonough and you go, is he going to start the year in the big leagues? Very unlikely, but I could see 2027 if there is a season, I could see Tyler McDonough getting a shot at some point. If a couple guys get hurt or whatnot, right? Which is bound to happen because it always happens to everyone at some point. Injuries are a part of every sport. Tyler McDonough can legitimately be an option for them. And I think that is, maybe it's not this year, maybe it's next year, maybe it's 2028 if he's still around in the org by then, hopefully, right?
I'll put it like that. I'll be kind of sad if Tyler McDonough doesn't get a chance in the big leagues with the Red Sox in the same way that Ryan Fitzgerald never got a shot with the Red Sox in the big leagues, right? Because Ryan Fitzgerald for years would go into spring training on the cusp of the 26-man roster, light it up during spring training, and he's going to make the roster. It looks like he's going to make the roster. Nope, back to Worcester. And then some guy on the big league roster gets injured. We need someone. Ryan Fitzgerald sitting right there. Nope, someone else. Right. I don't want that to happen to Tyler McDonough because I feel like he can bring you value. And like I said, we've seen Chad Tracy making moves and not being afraid to use guys off the bench. I feel like having a guy like Tyler McDonough around, like I said, whether it's this year or not, it's probably not this year, but like maybe even next year, right? You look at next year, give a guy Chad Tracy someone who, any given day you can plug anywhere in the lineup defensively. You can use him off the bench. He's not going to be like a big base stealer, but like God forbid you get a slow runner on the base. He's faster than someone who's slow, right? He's not going to go out and be, your Braden Ward, right? But you need a guy to go first to home. I'm putting a bet on Tyler McDonough over, Masataka Yoshida. I love Masa. The guy's got perfect running for him, but it's slow. I love him. Right. So in that sense, right, I feel like McDonough could, it would suck to see him not get a chance in the big leagues. And we see so many guys. Ryan Fitzgerald got a shot in Minnesota. We've seen Mickey Gasper get chances in the big leagues. We've seen, guys who are like Nady and Nick Sogard last year played massive roles for the Red Sox, right? There's no reason Tyler McDonough can't be a big leaguer. Like I said, this year, probably unlikely just because there's guys ahead of him. But looking towards next year and beyond, like I said, I would be sad if it doesn't happen because the talent's there. And that's kind of, and also too, like going back to the whole our guys kind of topic. Tyler McDonough is one of our guys, right? He's been in the system, feels like forever now. Like it would be nice to see him get a chance. When it happens, I don't know. I don't know when or if it will happen with the Red Sox, but it would be nice to see. But anything else, Hunter? I know.
Nope.
Vinny Capra had a good week. Mickey Gasper had a really good week. Braden Ward stole 3 bases this week, had 6 hits. Brett Harris had a good week. Nick Sogard had a solid. Nick Sogard had an 844 OPS this week, and it was only the 10th best OPS on the team this week. The bats were going in Worcester this week. But other than the bats, let's jump to the pitching side of things. Once again, not a ton prospect-wise. There really never is. I think probably the best place to start. Let's start with Blake Wehunt. 3 2/3 innings, worked around 6 hits and 2 walks. Got 4 strikeouts, only allowed 1 earned run, 2 runs in total. I think kind of one of the things that kind of not viral, but I feel like was a little bit of a talk on social media, which if you've watched Blake Wehunt pitch before, you'd probably know where this is going. The massive kind of head, I don't know if we call it tilt. I don't even know what we're supposed to call it. My vocabulary is failing me here. But Blake Wehunt's head, basically throwing his head almost into the ground, I guess is the way to put it. I feel like that really caught some people's attention.
I didn't see that. People were talking about that.
I saw a couple people talking about it. Because there are a couple people posting pictures of it. There are a few people who posted like pictures of it that I kind of saw. No one, not you, Hunter, not like any like beat writers or anything, but there are some people that sometimes will throw stuff out there or whatever, and like there's like a couple like random posts and like people's like replies of like Blake Wehunt just having like his head or like or like I think or whatnot. So like there was I think Ian Kundle posted a video of Wehunt, and I think there was some like traction on that in terms of like the whole like head thing with his delivery in the comments of that.
Yeah, it was his AAA debut. Decent, obviously a decent amount of traffic in 3 2/3 innings. Fastball was like 95, 96. Secondaries looked okay. I'm intrigued, especially with Connolly early getting traded. This does make him a little bit more of major league depth at this point. Obviously, I don't think he would be like the next guy up. They do have, probably should have silenced my phone.
That's fine.
But also people do know that I'm recording now, so that's kind of on him. I'm gonna have a talk with him later. They do have people in AAA that have pitched in the majors before, obviously, like Tyler Uberstein. Uberstein would be someone I think that would get the call before then. But he also, I think, comes off as a very viable trade candidate. I feel like he's someone that, even though he's not like a top 100 prospect or anything, I think a lot of teams would be interested in a massive right-handed pitcher who can, top out at like 99, who has intriguing secondaries. I think if he can kind of show out in his next start, he had a good season in Double A. I think if he can do something in his next start, I think maybe you could see him get flipped for, I'm not saying anything huge, but I think he could be a genuine, like, I don't know what exactly you would get for him, but like just like a 1-for-1 unsexy type of trade, like nothing huge, but like the Red Sox got a backup the catcher or something like that. Obviously, this would be in a scenario where they trade Connor Wong or something like that. But I don't know. He's someone I think that could end up being someone that the Red Sox use in a trade, or he could end up being someone who ends up making a couple starts for the Red Sox in late August. So he is someone that I think is going to end up being important to the Red Sox this year, one way or another. So this was a much more important start than I think people might have realized.
Yeah, the really only other thing for me on the pitching side. Oh well, I do want to mention. So Uberstein's pitching out of the bullpen. Obviously, see, it feels like he's kind of bigly depth. Tommy Canley gave up his first run in Worcester since like April. So he's obviously bad, but like that, there's bigly depth there for the bullpen, right? I know he struggled a little bit in the big leagues, but it's nice to have him around in Worcester too. Also, veteran presence. Samaniego, two and a third innings, scoreless. Nathan Hickey with a scoreless inning in relief. We love seeing that. And then you also look at like someone like Eduardo Rivera, who's going to be there, right? Just like there's a lot of like kind of feels like bullpen depth, especially if the Red Sox bring in like a reliever or two at the deadline, which the good old saying of you can never have too much pitching, you can never have too many arms in the bullpen. You would very much expect the Red Sox to bring in a reliever, if not maybe even two. So you might even see another guy kind of come from the big league team down to Worcester to help. We'll see what the plan is with Bayo, right? I know they would probably. I know they'd like him to start, but like what they would like him to do and what actually happens aren't always the same thing. Because he needs to learn how to get guys out in the first inning without giving up 5 runs. If they can get Bayo to do that and start, like that'd be great, right?
I mean, I'm just at this point, I'm convinced his start days are just cursed because it doesn't matter who starts on his days. It's just whoever it is just going to give up 19 runs in the first inning anyway. So
how many human monies are we throwing at Danhausen to uncurse Brian Bayo in the first inning?
It's been ugly, man. It's been terrible.
It's been bad. Legitimately, like,
it genuinely hasn't mattered who starts. They give up 2 or 3 runs. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's literally Bayo starts giving up 3 in the first inning. You bring an opener. Giovanni Moran's been great except for when he opens for Brian Bayo. It makes no sense. It's it's just, like at this point, like there's the talk the Red Sox might want to bring in a veteran starter. Yes, they're going to want to watch the innings of Tolley and Bennett, right? That makes sense. So they hopefully should be getting some depth, and hopefully you get a Garrett Crochet before the end of the year, and a fully healthy Garrett Crochet that's pitching at his best, hopefully. But yeah, right now though they are a little bit thin on starters in Worcester. It's kind of TBD. And as Iggy Suarez says, this isn't like a TBD by day thing. This is a TBD by inning. It's you go out there, you know what, you look good that inning, you don't throw a ton of pitches, you'll get the next inning. Like you're taking it, they're literally taking it an inning at a time in Worcester in terms of the pitching staff. Like that is so. Yes, like also too, like someone like Weehunt there is going to be important, just on the sense too of like they are thin on starting pitching, right? Especially with Uberstein being a reliever really now. Like, they need starters. Other note, before we wrap up on Worcester, I do think it is important to kind of note Chad Tracy got inducted into the Woo Sox Hall of Fame. There are other people, but I think this is kind of all. I know there's other people that got inducted in the Hall of Fame. I know this, but I just really want to focus on Chad Tracy for a moment here. Not take the spotlight away from others, but we've seen what he's done with the big league team now. But Trace was always a guy in Worcester where, and I say this from personal experience, having the privilege of getting to be there, be in his manager meetings, talk, sometimes too, even just talk to him after the manager meeting for a few minutes. And sometimes it's just regular baseball stuff. Sometimes, like the guy, knows what he's doing. And we've obviously seen it with the Red Sox right now, how he is and kind of his demeanor and how, he never gets too high, never gets too low. But the guy's a damn good manager, and he's left an impact on Worcester too. Like, look at Iggy Suarez now, and Iggy still talks about Trace and how what Trace was doing as the manager there, has had an impact on Iggy and how he manages games, right? So it's nice to see Trace get recognition, especially too, like, not have to wait for that recognition, because it was very much deserved, right? The guy didn't have a losing season in Worcester. And with how it's looking right now, he's not going to have a losing season with the Red Sox. At the very least, not a losing season in terms of when he's the manager. And at this point, the Red Sox might are looking at being over 500 for the entire year if they keep playing the way they have been. So, Trace deserves all the flowers he gets. This is also going to be my moment in time to say, the little brief major league talk here is like, take that, interim tag off. Come on. I'm sure, yes, they're going to wait till after the season to do it, but like, let's be honest, as long as the Red Sox don't totally collapse, he's in the manager next year. And honestly, even if they do, I think there's been too much good to just be turned away from it now and be like, no, right? He absolutely deserves it. The guy is great, and I think that for how much we talked about him in Worcester and how highly not only us but everyone talked about him in Worcester, it was only a matter of time. And similar for us, I guess, similar in terms of how we want to see Red Sox, like homegrown Red Sox prospects, do well. With Trace being in Worcester for 5 years, at least very much for me, there was always the hope of, when Alex, the hope was always Cora's going to move into the front office at some point and Trace takes over the manager role, because Cora had kind of expressed in the past him wanting to kind of bump into the front office. Now, obviously, how it happened with Cora getting fired, not how I was thinking it was going to happen or anyone did, but it's nice to see Trace get the chance with the big league team here, have a lot of players that he worked with in Worcester, and clearly the team, clearly he's been the right fit for the team. And it's just great to see. So I did kind of want to touch on that as well. So shout out Trace.
Yeah, absolutely.
The guy's amazing.
And before we move on, did we mention Angel Bastardo?
I was going to mention him.
Okay.
And then I got sidetracked with the other pitching in the bullpen. And yeah.
3 1/3, 1 hit, no runs, no hits, or no hit batters, no walks, 6 strikeouts, hit 99 on the gun. This is his second straight fantastic week. He's down to 4.62 ERA, 2.09 batting average against. He's got 51 strikeouts and 37 innings, 20 walks. So the numbers still aren't fantastic, but again, this is 2 straight really good weeks for Angel Bastardo. And just another guy who definitely should be seen as major league depth for the bullpen. Um, Again, it'll be interesting to see what they do in the coming week for the trade deadline. But wouldn't be shocked if bullpen help isn't really the major focus of the trade deadline for them. I think obviously the main talking point at the moment is shortstop. Maybe they go after starting pitching help, but obviously they also just traded away Connolly early, so that doesn't seem to be their biggest focus at the moment. So I think they seem pretty comfortable with their options. I also, again, wouldn't be shocked if they get they go after go for a big swing. Um, it'd be fun if they go for a big swing. But still, they're going to need depth at some point, and Bastardo is a very intriguing name to watch. If he continues on this trajectory, he's someone that could absolutely be a major help at some point late in the season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Totally agree with that. And it's also nice too with kind of the Tommy John with him, and then obviously Blue Jays taking him to the Rule 5. It's nice to see him back in the Red Sox org in Worcester, throwing well, high 90s out of the bullpen. How much of that is being in the bullpen as opposed to starting? Who knows, right? Probably has a little bit to do with that at the very least. But it's nice to see, right? And he like you mentioned, a couple of really good weeks in a row for him post All-Star break. With that, we're going to take a trip now down to Portland. Portland's going to be relatively quick, in all honesty. There's not a ton on the offensive side. They struggled this week. The biggest things this week, Arias hit one last homer in Portland before being moved up to Worcester. Ronald Rosario hit a homer. Mason White hit a homer. As I mentioned in the past, whenever he hits the ball in the air, there's a damn good chance it's going to be a homer. We touched on that before, but I'll bring it up again. And then Jack Winay and Brooks Brannon, Jack Winay and Brooks Brannon, both with 2 homers apiece. Not really a ton else offensively in Portland. It was, like I said, it was a rough week for them. We've touched on Winay a lot. We've touched on Brandon a lot. Hunter, do you have kind of anything on either of those guys or anyone else in Portland on the offensive side of things really this week? There wasn't a ton in all.
Yeah, no, the offense was ugly. We talked about it a little bit before we started recording. One person hit over 250, and it was Raúl Martinez, who went 1 for 3. One other person hit 250 or above, and it was Brooks Brannon. And then one other person hit over 200, and it was Matt Frazier, who went 2 for 10. So the offense was just really, really not good this week for Portland. The pitching absolutely carried. So just, not much to talk about offensively for Portland this week.
Yeah, I think, like I said, really the biggest thing is kind of 2 homers for Brandon, 2 homers for Winay. But yeah, there's not really much. Will Turner did his typical 4 walks this week, but there really isn't much. In all honesty, yeah, I'm even looking through the numbers right now. There's not, a ton. Abram Liendl stole 2 bases this week.
Yeah,
you're really grasping at straws for the
offense. We went over an hour on Worcester, so we're good. We're good to do a real quick offense in Portland here.
Yeah. Moving on to the pitching side of things, there is more to look at here.
Yeah.
I want to start with Hayden Mullins. 5 innings, just the 1 hit, no runs, 8 strikeouts with the 1 singular walk. Mullins he's had a little bit of a weird year. So he's got a 5.10 ERA this year. We also remember that one start where arguably could have argued the game should have been at least, delayed or postponed or whatever it was weather-wise. But he's had a weird year. He's had really good starts. He's had a couple of really rough starts also that necessarily weren't always his fault. Weather isn't always, when the weather doesn't kind of play your way, and it affects both teams. It's kind of hard it's very easy to just look at that and go, okay, you know what? It wasn't just you. Everyone struggled. But he's someone who, 25 years old. He turns 26 in September. he's been in the org now for, this is what, his 4th full season in the organization. And I think that, Holobet's just got moved up to Worcester. Obviously, We Hunt is there. Odds are, we've already seen Mullins pitch in Worcester this year, with the kind of the 3 innings he pitched. We're looking at Mullins kind of at this point being, at some point, odds are, like we've already mentioned with Worcester's pitching staff and them being short and starting pitching, odds are he's probably going to be in Worcester at some point this year. And, it wouldn't shock me if they want to keep him in Portland just a tad bit longer, just based on the fact with Holobet's going up, it's really Mullins, Rogers, Ianson, Zeal, and then like Jeddix and Paez. So it wouldn't shock me if they want to keep him in Portland until they at least bring someone else up from Greenville, and especially until after the deadline when they kind of figure out where everything sits with kind of pitchers in the org, if anyone gets traded or not, right? But odds are we're going to see Mullins again in Worcester this year. Odds are, I would be kind of shocked if we didn't, in all honesty, if we didn't see Mullins in Worcester again at some point this year. The other one I think to touch on, and we touched on him last week, only 3 innings this week, but Anthony Ianson, 5 strikeouts, just 2 hits in the 3 innings, did walk 3, but scoreless 3 innings. We continue to look at Ianson and just what he's done this year, and it has been special. I don't want to say it's watered down because we've seen so many obscene performances, and we mention this every year where it's like it's not going to happen again, and then it happens, right? And there's someone, right? No one's going to have the Roman rise, and then Christian Campbell, then no one's going to no, it's not happening, and then Peyton Tolley, and then it's not happening, and Anthony Ianson, right? Like, it's not supposed to happen like that, right? I want to say it gets watered down a little bit just because this year has been so special for Anthony Ianson, but it is hard to live up to the year, especially that year Christian Campbell had. Like, first of all, but even the year Tolley had, it is hard to live up to that, just in the sense of those 2 years back to back were crazy, and Iason's having almost as crazy of a year as those guys had. But I think sometimes we've lost I try to emphasize it as much as I can, but even that it's hard to, but just because of kind of the crazy years other guys have had recently. Like Anthony Ianson doing this in any other organization, I feel like people are would be going crazy, literally crazy. And in some ways, Arias being closer to the big leagues and having the year he's had also kind of takes some of that spotlight away from Ianson. But we're looking at Ianson right now, and by the end of this year, don't be shocked if Ianson legitimately is really, when I say really pushing, I mean right now he's I'm gonna be pipeline. I think they have him in the 50 range. They have him 49. Don't be shocked if by the end of this year we're looking at him really pushing that top 30 where Tolley was, or maybe a little bit shy of the top 30, but it's about where Tolley was when he kind of peaked on prospect lists before his debut. I think it was in the high 20s or low 30s for Tolley. Don't be shocked if Iason's pushing that by the end of the season. He's been that good, and like I said, we talked about it a ton. It's hard to always talk about the same guys all the time. We want to give everyone the love, but I do think should be emphasized, the kind of year Iason's having. Other than that, I think the real big one, I'll let you kind of touch on it, Hunter. John Holobet's 5 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 10 strikeouts, no walks. The most John Holobet start, I think, ever, outside of the fact that he didn't go 6 or 7 innings. Legitimately, that was the only thing needed, him going another inning, for it to be the most kind of John Holobet start ever.
Yeah.
He's moving up to Worcester. Obviously a great start, and deserved promotion, very much so.
Yeah. Like you said, 5 innings, 3 hits, no walks, no runs, 10 strikeouts. Second time this year that he got double-digit strikeouts. He had 11 in, I think it was his 4th start of the year. Down to a 4.33 ERA, 2.36 batting average against, 1.22 WHIP in 17 games, 15 starts. Acquired him last year in the Quinn Priester trade. started the year in single A in the Brewers organization. When he got here, immediately bumped up to high A, made a couple of starts there, moved up to double A, spent the rest of the year in double A. Obviously, he's been in double A all year this year. So last year, the big thing with him was he would eat innings, didn't walk people, but also didn't really strike people out. Hold on, I had the number in front of me. I don't have it anymore. I think it was like an 8.66, I want to say is the number. I might be making that up, but I think it was like an 866 K per nine last year. And this year it's jumped up to like 10 something, which like that's just phenomenal. That's been like the big thing with him. The walk per nine has also gone up a little bit. Okay, so last year in 124 and 2/3 innings, he had 120 strikeouts, which is an 8.66 K per nine. I got that right. And then this year he has 93 strikeouts in 79 innings, which is a 10.59 K per nine. So almost exactly a 2 K per nine jump. So like that's been the big difference with him, is just a massive jump in K per nine. And it's not like he has like disgusting pitches, low to mid 90s fastball, and then just a bunch of decent secondaries, like an okay slider, an okay curveball, an okay changeup. But he just has phenomenal control of everything. So, he's putting the fastball where he wants, and then he's getting himself into good counts, and then that's where he can start being deceptive. And he can put the slider exactly where he wants it, or he can bury a changeup. He can bury a changeup, or he can backdoor a curveball, and it's creating these issues for the batter, and he's confusing batters, and he's mixing things up, and he's run into some issues this year. He's had a couple of really bad blow up starts. I was at one of them in Somerset. But for the most part, he has been absolutely phenomenal. This is 100% deserved, and I'm very excited to see what he can do in AAA. He's another one of those guys. He's a different pitcher from Blake Wehunt, so I don't want to say he's one of those guys like Blake Wehunt, but he's another one of those guys like Blake Wehunt, where it's like he's absolutely someone who can come up and help the Red Sox down the stretch with a couple of spot starts late in the year, and become a valuable part. I don't want to say a valuable part of the rotation, but a valuable part of the team, where he makes a couple starts for the rotation late down the line, just because, late August, late September, there's always going to be a point in the season where arms are tired, people need a rest, someone gets injured, and it's just, you need a start here or there. And John Holobetz is someone, I know obviously like that would mean he only made a couple starts in AAA, but we've talked about it all year. The Red Sox just don't have starting pitching in AAA this year. They just don't. So he's someone that could be that guy. Like, they've kind of been operating on bullpen starts most of the year in AAA. It's been very, very strange. For as good as the Red Sox rotation has been, and they've had like enough depth all year. Like, they've had like the 6, 7, 8 starters. That's kind of like where the depth has ended. And it's like, obviously there's the hope that they're getting a couple of these guys back. But it's like, it's really hard to bank on Cutter Crawford or Tanner Houck to be starters this year. Like, that just likely isn't happening. So it's like, that's where you hope for someone like John Holobetz or someone like Blake Wehunt to make a start and give you 5, 6, maybe even 7 innings if they could, you could squeeze that out of them. And Holobetz is someone who you absolutely could see giving you 7 innings. Yeah, he's just, he has been, just to go back to that trade, and the fact that he was the player to be named later is still so incredible to me. Yeah, he's been everything you could have asked for and more for the Red Sox to this point.
Yeah, definitely. The other, I think the only other thing really to kind of touch on is Max Carlson's 5 2/3 innings out of the pen in 2 appearances, 7 strikeouts, 1 walk, no hits, no runs. He's been really interesting this year. He's had some really good weeks. Just had some, and his season really is kind of, at least his numbers really ruined by a bad April. So he has a 5.03 ERA this year, but in April, in 14 innings, he allowed 20 runs, all of them earned, which gave him a 12.56 ERA in April. In May, he put up a 2.04 ERA. In June, he put up a 2.92. And in July so far, he has a 3.07 ERA. So really, it speaks a little bit to like relievers and how like a couple of bad appearances or even just a bad month especially can just screw your numbers for an entire season. It happened to Aaron Bummer with the White Sox. His last year with the White Sox, he had like a 7 ERA with a sub-3 FIP, right? Like relievers can, that's why like relievers, when you see like sometimes broadcasters will throw it out there after or like this day after a reliever has a bad appearance or their next appearance after a bad appearance. Or even sometimes if they have a bad appearance during it, they'll be like, yeah, like this guy's ERA is going to be ballooned for the next 2 months, right? Or it's going to be ballooned until the All-Star break, or right? And you always hear it, but like it's true with relievers typically. And Carlson, his April was bad. There's no other way than put it. There's no other way to put it, right? He had a really bad April, but he's bounced back from it really nicely and he's put together 3 straight good months. And it's nice to see. It's been 8 + 7 + 5 is 20 appearances since then, since April, and it's been for the most part really good. That's how many innings? It's I think 44 2/3 innings. Doing quick math on that. In that stretch, so this is now more of a like legitimate sample size of him pitching well. So it's another thing, especially with a reliever. But like it's also too why sometimes you can't just look at the box numbers. You can't just look at the box score, right? He's got a 5 ERA this year, but since April has been really good. So I think it's kind of that. Especially with relievers, sometimes you can't always trust the numbers. Sometimes especially over a long span for relievers, sometimes you do have to kind of narrow it down a little bit more, and narrowing it from 4 months to 3 months isn't that much narrowing it down, but it does kind of speak to how good he's been the last 3 months, that he's been that good the last 3 months, but also kind of speaks to the really rough April he had, right? And how it kind of screw with him. It probably will. I shouldn't say probably will. It is going to screw with his numbers the entire year. He could finish the year with a 4.50 ERA, and we're going to look back at it and go, outside of April, he was really damn good, right? It's kind of the unfortunate part about pitching sometimes, being a reliever, right? That's what happens. But he's been really good as of late. And obviously, he's 24 years old, so it's not like he's old by any means, especially for a reliever, right? Like a lot of times we see relievers 26, 27, right? In AA into AAA, right? Like he's only 24 years old, right? There's he turns 25 in September.
And 65 strikeouts and just 13 walks in 59 innings. Like there is, and if anybody's ever watched him pitch, he's gross. Like he's absolutely disgusting.
And I think the numbers don't do it justice.
Breaking stuff.
Yeah, the numbers don't do it justice. It's like I said, the bad April really kind of throws all those numbers off. But yeah, don't be shocked if maybe I don't know about this year just because I feel like there's just so much big league depth in that bullpen in Worcester. Albeit, like I said, even out of the bullpen, 2 appearances, he went basically it's 5 2/3, almost 6 innings, right? So he can give you a little bit of length out of the bullpen if needed, right? Which Worcester can use all the arms they can get right now. But don't be shocked if he's in Worcester at some point this year, and if not this year, don't be shocked if it's next year, right? That he's very much in Worcester early in the year, if not start of the year, right? Just like that, he's gross, and like I said, the numbers have been really good after that rough April. With that, anything else on her in AA? All right, that's going to wrap it up AA. Before we get to Greenville, real quick, though, Jordan and myself will be doing a trade deadline live stream. That's going to be on deadline day next Monday, August 3rd. The plan is to start at 12 o'clock, and we're pretty much going through the deadline at 6. The plan is to be done at 7 because Hunter and I do have to record this show. So it'll be a little bit of a long day for me. It'll be fun, but that will be live streamed. Should be on the YouTube channel, Twitter. I don't know if it'll be the Pesky Report Twitter or if it might be Jordan's personal Twitter. Either or. If it's on Jordan's personal, it'll be retweeted by the Pesky Report Twitter. So just keep an eye out for it. I'm sure we'll be posting about it throughout the week as well. I think even it'll be on Twitch even potentially. Jordan would know a little bit more about that than I would, but we're going to be live streaming it. It's going to be a fun one. Come pop by, throw us some questions, whether it's in a live chat or whether you want to just kind of reply to any of our tweets. We'll see, because I'm sure there will be some downtime. So I'll try and answer as many questions as possible. Trade deadline or even just Red Sox in general. And we'll try to get to those. So that is going to be, like I said, August 3rd, this upcoming Monday on trade deadline day. Come hang with us. Should be fun. We've had some really fun guests the next couple of years. We'll see what we have in store. I actually don't know if we have anything in store or not guest-wise. I'm sure we'll have people. I just don't know what it's going to look like. Jordan's taking care of that, so we'll see. But regardless, should be fun, and should also be fun because looks like the Red Sox are going to be active, and so it should be fun in that sense. With that, though, it's now time to get to Greenville and Justin Gonzales land. He had himself a week, to say the very least. Justin Gonzales, 5 for 12 this week, a double, a pair of homers, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, only 2 strikeouts, stole a base as well.
I think you missed a couple stats.
Slapped the ever-living shit out of a catcher who, why would you try to get in the face of someone who's 6'7", 270 pounds? I don't know. Cool, you got your catcher's mask, you got all your catching equipment. Cool, that's not going to stop him. He did get suspended for a game. You know what? Then he comes back and it's a walk-off homer, pimps the ever-living crap out of it. If you didn't want to get slapped in the face, shut up and don't give up a homer. And if you don't want him to pimp the walk-off homer, I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't give up the homer either. I don't know. Just me. Maybe you should be better, is what I'm saying. Be better. We obviously love Justin Gonzales here.
That walk-off celebration was an all-timer. It was incredible.
It was amazing. And if you want to top it off, the catcher getting his, I guess you could say, comeuppance turned into an ESPN notification.
I was so mad that the catcher for the walk-off homer wasn't the same catcher, because that would have been so funny.
Do you think the manager for the other team had to tell the team just like, no, like, we don't do that. We're not doing this here. We're not getting in fights with a guy who's bigger than like 2 of our guys combined. Like,
well, Gonzales in the game he came back in, second plate appearance of that game, he did get hit by a pitch on the first pitch of the plate appearance, and he did immediately look at the bench and tell them, like, relax, everything's cool. And he like looked at the ump and he looked at the pitcher and the catcher and everybody, and he was like, we're fine, everybody's fine. And then 2 at-bats later, he hit a 500-foot walk-off home run and celebrated.
Sure,
like
it was only 500 feet. It's only 500 feet. I don't know. I think it maybe closer to 600 or 700 or 800. The thing was an absolute nuke. When we talk about Justin Gonzales, like we mentioned before, he's been very much. It's weird. The power hasn't always come out in terms of like home run power. But if he really starts lifting the ball in the air and starts tapping into the power, like the guy hits the ball so stupidly hard. Like we were just mentioning it before the show, Hunter. Like legitimately, ceiling could be 50 homer bat. Like if he really taps in the power with his size, like the only people I can think of off the top of my head that are like comparable in size are Aaron Judge and Carlos Stanton. I guess you could maybe throw Joey Gallo in there, but he hits left-handed, so it's different. And also to be completely fair to Joey Gallo, he had a couple of really good seasons, but although not as much bat to ball as Justin Gonzales. It's also that side of things. But Joey Gallo had a couple, good 40 homer seasons before he decided to just shit the bed with the Yankees, which we do appreciate here. But yeah, Justin Gonzales, the power is absurd, and yeah, a crazy week for him. Just everything involved. Hunter, for your side of it, obviously, I know the the fight got a lot of traction on social media. So did the walk-off homer. Probably one of the more what's the way to put this? Probably one of the more one of the bigger weeks social media wise for a player than that we've had in a while for Justin Gonzales this week, because like I said, two moments that went viral. Like I said, one of them went viral enough to be on ESPN and could be an ESPN notification on all of our phones, and then obviously the walk-off homer went kind of bonkers as well on Red Sox Twitter. Just a crazy week for Justin Gonzales. And he was only suspended for one game.
Yeah, so my first thing doesn't really have anything to do with baseball, but just so Baseball America tweeted out the brawl, and they tagged me in it because they used my video. And I had to mute the conversation because I was just muting people left and right. Holy shit. Baseball Twitter has such a racism problem, dude. It was absurd. Like, I was disgusted with, like, it started with me just being like, all right, I'm just gonna like mute these people and move on. Cause it was just like, oh, that's gross. That, I'm not gonna let it bother me. And then it got like aggressive with how like just it's 2026, man. Like, I don't even know how else to say it. It's 2026. And the things people are saying about a 19-year-old kid who got in a fight.
Crazy.
Like, first off, it takes multiple people to fight. And they had no problem with the white catcher getting in a fight, but they had a problem with the black Dominican kid getting in a fight. Venezuelan kid? Is he from Venezuela? Now I'm the racist asshole. Dominican kid. They had a problem with the 19-year-old black Dominican kid getting in a fight. And just like every slur in the book about him, it was absurd. And I was like, all right, I'm just, instead of sitting here reading every comment, because like it's not like I was like scrolling just angrily reading them. I'm getting tagged in every. You're getting
notifications.
Yeah, because Baseball America tagged me in the post, so it's not like I was just sitting there like looking through doom scrolling. I was getting tagged in them. So like at some point I was just like, I'm just muting the conversation, and I can't do this for my own mental health. So that was my first thought of this whole thing, was just like, my God, dude, this is absurd. And of course it's all like faceless accounts. But anyway, so that was my first issue, was like, it sucks that he's probably getting a lot of this. Like, he probably is seeing way too much of this just because like he got in a fight, and like the other guy's probably not really dealing with this, which, to be fair, there were people also tagging the catcher in this, calling him names. And it's just like, dude, he got in a fight.
Either way, it's like, not right.
Yeah, like,
you shouldn't do it.
Like, there were Red Sox fans like calling him names, like obviously nothing nearly as bad as they were calling Justin Gonzales. But like, dude, he got in a fight. Like, yeah, I'm rooting for Justin Gonzales in the fight, I guess. But like, dude, they're people who got in a fight on a baseball field. It happens. Like, let's all move on.
And it wasn't even that bad of a fight. Like,
yeah, like they exchanged some words. He slapped them. They exchanged more words. They got held back. They got ejected.
Yeah. Come on. This wasn't this wasn't as, this wasn't the the Tyreek Reed fight.
Yeah. Like
it was not that.
Again, like I mentioned earlier, we moved past it so much that when he got hit by a pitch 2 days later, he told everybody to relax. It was fine. Like, they had clearly moved on from the situation. But outside of that, yes, very cool week for Justin Gonzales in the sense of like, yeah, he's on ESPN. Obviously, maybe not like the best PR for him in the world, but he's on ESPN showing him hit like a ridiculous, like that was an absurd home run that he hit. And it also shows him towering over everybody else and then slapping the hell out of the catcher. And then again, like, yeah, now he's in the news a little bit. And then 2 days later, he hits a walk-off home run, which again is an absolute piss shot. And it's just like, and I know a lot of people don't like the hot dogging, but I feel like, especially the younger
Okay,
generation.
hold on. If you're fine with the big league team doing it on their 15-game win streak, can we? I know it's more exaggerated. But like,
don't get me wrong. Me personally, I'm all for.
I know you are.
I'm
like,
100% for get jacked up as you want to. I'm 100% for. I'm just saying there's people that don't even like. There's people that don't even like the major league team doing it. Yeah. They think it's absurd. But my point is more like that's usually like the older generations. Like, ooh, back in my day,
buy me a river.
You'd take one in the ribs the next game and then you'd never do it again. And I'm like, all right, well then don't give up the homer, dude. Like, I don't know what to tell you. If you don't want to get it, don't give up the homer. And then they wouldn't get mad if like the pitcher celebrated. And it's like, I don't know. I don't see the difference, man. But
literally, like, it's the same people who get mad at this is gonna sound really awful, but I don't care. The same people who get mad at Justin Gonzales for that are the people who celebrated Trevor Bauer doing sword celebrations.
Yes, exactly. Which again, I know who you are. I know what type of people you are.
Yeah, there you go. It's a little bit blunt, but you know what? It's the way it is. Cry me a river.
But like, there's people that don't like the whole celebration thing, but I feel like the younger generation, especially, absolutely loves that type of stuff. So like, they see him doing all like getting in the fight and stuff, and then they see him hitting the walk-off homer and they're like, oh, this dude freaking rocks. Like this guy is 8 feet tall and he hits 900-foot homers and he runs down the line pointing at his jersey and he's not even at like the ball has landed and he's still halfway to first base on a walk-off home run. This guy's the coolest person
and
in the
he's
world.
Like 20 feet out of the baseline if the baseline was a real thing.
Yeah, like this is the coolest person in the world. So I feel like this was like a very good week for like Justin Gonzales fan clubs. Like I feel like there's all like the, Cedon Rafaela enjoyer, a great account, love that guy. Like there's, Cutter is King, Rafael Devers enjoyer, like there's all those accounts. Roman Anthony, I feel like you're going to see a ton of like Justin Gonzales enjoyer, Justin Gonzales. You're going to see a ton of those accounts cropping up because they're going to be like, this dude's awesome, and everybody's going to want to be the first, the quote unquote first on the Justin Gonzales train. So I feel like you're going to see a ton of people who want to be oh, dude, I was big on Justin Gonzales before anybody else. I've already seen so many people in my comments trying to come up with Justin Gonzales nicknames. So like, I already feel like this has been a very good week for Justin Gonzales. Like everybody is, and it had already been happening before this week, but the amount of quote tweets and comments that were just like, you can't trade this guy. Like it just, and again, it had already been happening before this week because everybody was already like the potential of him. And again, people understand that it's all potential with prospects, and for all you know, any prospect could flame out in AA and never become anything. But the potential of someone is why you don't want to trade them. And just there's so many people were like, this guy should be untouchable. And the number of people saying that over the last 4 days has jumped from, 10 people in my mention saying it to 500 people in my mention saying it. So yeah. I feel like this was just an A+++ week for Justin Gonzales.
It was crazy.
Couldn't have been a better week for Justin Gonzales.
Legitimately, it's funny. People are like thinking of nicknames. I'm like, yo, if he keeps hitting homers like this, we might just start calling him Bigger Poppy. Just because he's just massive. Like, he makes his own teammates look like they could be his kids, based on his size.
I had just been calling him Big Dog. Someone said Gonzilla, which I thought was kind of funny. Someone said Hugo, because somebody said he's got the juice. But my issue with that is there's a rapper called Axel Leone, who goes by Hugo. So there's the trademark issues there, and Axel Leone's a New York Yankees fan. So I feel like that one's off the table. I don't think we can go with Hugo if the actual Hugo is a Yankees fan. Don't think that works. I feel like that's bad juju. So I'm out on Hugo. But Gonzilla, kind of funny. Because the man is an absolute monster.
Yeah, no, he just like literally, as I said, we touched on this a little bit before we started recording, but yeah, the power, like potential, like Justin Gonzales, like 100th percentile ceiling is 50 homers, right? How many players hit their 100th percentile? Technically, no one, because it's not really possible, But like, it's one of those things with him where it's like we talk about complete 5-tool guys with them and then being like Andy Azakar, right? We look at him and be like, sky's the limit for him. Franklin Arias, right? Sky's the limit, right? If everything goes perfect, guys, we're looking at potential like best players of baseball. Roman Anthony, same way. Justin Gonzales is a little bit starting to creep into that range, not in terms of the 5-toolness, but in terms of the bat. Like, he's starting to creep into like top high end, like ceiling of ceilings, one of the best hitters in baseball. Does that mean he's going to be that? No. Right? What always happens is prospects have a ceiling, they have a floor. Odds are they're somewhere in the middle. Most people think, he's going to be this. Most people think he's going to be somewhere around this. Yeah, the ceiling has the floor. He's going to be somewhere around that, right? Like, I think like a good example is Brian Bayo, right? Because when Bayo was promoted, there were a lot of people who were like, his ceiling's a 3, maybe a 2 if he's at his absolute peak, right? And then there's some people who are like, he's probably going to be more of a 4 or a 5. He's kind of settled in the 3 to 4 range, in all honesty. Like outside of this year, but like you look at last year, like perfect. Like Bayo as a 4 on a World Series team last year would make like you look at Bayo's year last year, and then you look at like with Crochet, Suarez, Gray, like that Bayo could slot in as a 4 behind those guys, right? So like in that sense, like Bayo 3-4, like okay, yeah, falls somewhere in the middle, right? Of around people were thinking, but falls below the kind of in between that ceiling and floor, right? And that's typically what's happening. Is Justin Gonzales going to be a 50 home run guy? Odds are no, right? But like, if everything were to go perfectly right for Justin Gonzales, like you can see it, right? And that's also too when it comes to like fans not wanting to trade guys, like those are the type of things that make us not want to trade guys. As much as I love Chase Majoth, it's not Chase Majoth's probably going to be a good big leaguer for a long time. It's like okay, but like as much as we love Chase Majoth here, like his ceiling was never going to be super high, right? He was always more of a high floor guy, which there's nothing wrong with. We love those guys around here too, but like there's a difference between Chase Majoth and his ceiling being like a good, like a solid, kind of old school number 2 hitter. Compared to a guy who, if all goes right, is a 50 homer bat, right? There's a difference. And Justin Gonzales really, like, you can believe. You can legitimately dream on that. But speaking of Andy Azakar too, I did want to bring him up because I mentioned him too, and kind of one of those guys you can really dream on. He also had a really good week. 7 hits, 2 doubles, a triple, and 2 homers. He walked 2 times, just struck out 3 times. I mean, we talked about Arias's rise over the last really year and a half, and it's funny because Andy Azakar in some ways feels a little bit of like the outfield version of it. He turns 20 in February. His combined numbers this year: 266, 320, 266 average, 324 on base, and a 417. No, sorry. 417 slug. That's his career numbers. A 503 slug for an 827 OPS, 24 doubles, 6 triples, 15 homers in 80 games. He's now almost exactly the same in terms of games played between Salem and Greenville. 39 in Salem, 41 in Greenville. In Greenville, it's 239, 306, 477, 783. It's not as insane as the numbers were in Salem. But still 9 doubles, 3 triples, 9 homers in Greenville. And it feels like he's really starting to kind of come around in Greenville. Not that he was like really bad, but he had a couple of weeks at the beginning in Greenville that were like, they're okay, but they weren't crazy, right? Or, he might have had a rough week here and there. But now it feels like Andy Azacar is really kind of getting to the point now where he's comfortable in Greenville, comfortable seeing the pitching, right? And he's really kind of like getting comfortable at the level. Like I said, this week really like 7 for 21 with 5 extra base hits, 2 of them homers. He only struck out 3 times, right? And 21 at bats. Like also a pair of walks. There's not much Andy Azacar can't do, and he's a little bit different than Arias. Arias's bat to ball skills probably last year were better than what Andy Azacar's are this year. But Andy Azacar this year has more power than Arias had last year. So there is a difference there. Like I said, Azacar's got 15 homers in 9 in 41 games for Greenville, right? So he's someone to be super excited about. Similar to Justin Gonzales, a guy you can dream on, right? All goes right for Andy Azacar. You're looking at a 5-tool player, right? And a good one at that. So, obviously, deadline, you hope you don't trade any of these guys, especially to someone like Andy Azacar, a non-exact comp, but like a scary thing trading a guy before AA is always like the Fernando Tatis like thing, which is seemingly scared teams away of trading away guys in the low minors, right? The Tatis gets traded to the Padres and turns into one of the better players in baseball, although he hasn't been as good since, yep. Just if you're hearing the audio, you won't see it, but let's just say it's had something to do with what was it that they called it? Did they call it ringworm?
I think so. They said it was? Actually, right?
Isn't that what they said it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. if you still are unaware what we're talking about, it's when Tatis popped for PEDs. He hasn't been as good since. He's still really good. Not as he's had a rougher year this year, but still, the point still stands.
I do fear with Azacar that he's going to be a massive name brought up in trade talks this year. I think
because I think you want to put. I think real quick, I want to put this too in the reason of if you're a team who believes in Azacar, you want to get him before he really pops off, especially at the AA level, right? A la like Arias popping off this year. And if you're the Red Sox, the reason you trade Azacar isn't because you don't believe in him. It's because you're getting a legitimate piece back, and there are still a ton of unknowns with Azacar because he's only played in high A at the highest level he's touched, right? So it's the Red Sox trading Azacar wouldn't be they don't believe in him. It's there's still a lot of variables in a massive range of what he could be, and you're getting an established player back. Whereas the team trading for Azacar is looking at him like, hey, we believe in this guy. We think he's going to break out even more. And now we have somewhat of a Tatis situation where this guy could potentially turn into, in their best hopes and dreams, a legitimate 5-tool player.
Yeah, he's absolutely going to be a top 100 prospect and could be much higher than a top 100 prospect. But he's not at the moment. I think he could be very, very soon. But for the caliber of player that the Red Sox are likely going to go after, unless they do end up trading for Elly De La Cruz, which I really don't think that's going to happen. The Red Sox aren't going to be trading Franklin Arias. They're not going to be trading Anthony Einson. I don't think they're going to be trading Justin Gonzales. I don't think they're going to be trading Kyson Witherspoon. So it starts to creep down to like, if they do trade for Jeremy Pena, which it doesn't sound like that's happening either, but if they do trade for Zach Neto, they're going to have to start getting uncomfortable with someone like Andy Azacar, which if I'm being honest, I still feel like that's an overpay. But you have to get uncomfortable in these talks, because if you don't, the trades aren't ever going to happen. You can't just be like, all right, well, we'll give you, 3 prospects that we don't really like. Here you go. Like
Yeah,
that,
I'll throw
it's
another
not,
name into that list of guys that other teams would love to get before they pop off. Franklin Primera, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you're looking, these are the type of guys where teams look at and they go, if this goes right, we're getting this guy before he really pops off and turns into a legitimate prospect, right? Where like those guys, they still have value now, right? I think baseball trade values isn't like a perfect website by any means, but in terms of prospects, trade value wise, Arias is 1, Ianson is 2, and then Gonzales, Azekar, and Primera are 3, 4, and 5 on their website for trade value, right? And it's the baseball trade values website. It's like I said, it's not perfect. It's a good thing to kind of get a gist of what guys might be worth or what you could get for players value wise. It's not the end all be all, obviously, but it does kind of show like those guys right now. They're in about the 20 to 25 million in surplus value range. If they pop off, Arias last year was in that range, and now he's I think 69 million in surplus value. Like it, so. That's kind of where you're looking at in terms of those guys if they pop off.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at a 1-for-1 similarity to an Otto Lopez, now with Franklin Arias, you're looking close to 1-for-1. Like you are legitimately you're looking at legit big leaguers here. Now you're not just saying, like I'll use this comp. Like everyone's like sky high thing is Ellie De La Cruz. Ellie De La Cruz is 77 million in surplus value. Franklin Arias is 69 million. So based on their website, you're saying Arias plus a couple pieces gets you Ellie De La Cruz. Yeah. Now that's not exactly how it works, right? But think about that value wise. You go from Otto Lopez to potentially Ellie De La Cruz in value for Franklin Arias, right? So obviously, Arias is not getting traded for Ellie De La Cruz. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, though, if you're matching up the trade values based on what BTV has it, right? You might be looking at Andy Azkar going from being worth Otto Lopez to being worth Ellie De La Cruz. And as good as Otto Lopez has been this year, Ellie De La Cruz is Ellie De La freaking Cruz. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a difference, right? And if you're a team getting that player, you're somewhat banking and maybe not banking, but you're really hoping for that jump because, if the Red Sox hold on to Andy Azekar or Justin Gonzales or Franklin Primera, which they should really hold on to all 3 in my opinion. And then next year's deadline comes around and one of them's broken out. And now instead of flipping them for a rental or a guy who's got a year and a half left, so the rest of that 27 and all of 28, now you might be getting a legitimate star who still has 3 or 4 years of control. That's the difference, right?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people would go, well, why wouldn't you trade the prospect for an established big leaguer? One, you only have 26 big league roster spots. That's one thing. And 2, you don't trade them because if they do pop off, like Arias, for example, now we look at Franklin Arias as someone who could be the Red Sox shortstop for the next 10 years, right? Whereas before the breakout, we were looking at him, maybe he'll be a shortstop, maybe he'll end up being their second baseman because of Meyer. Should be good, but like, how good is he going to be? Now we look at Franklin Arias and go like, oh no, this guy legitimately could be a superstar, right? That's the difference, right? Next year at this time, we could be looking at any of those 3 as legitimate, like, oh, these guys could be like future players at their position for 10 plus years with the franchise. Yes, there's the flip side that they might hit a wall on their development, and they, as we say, development's not linear, right? There is a godforsaken chance you hit the Miguel Bleis wall, right? And unfortunately for a guy like Bleis, he's never really gotten over it, right? But organizations, especially in the low minors, are almost scared of trading away a guy who could turn into that star player, right? Whereas once they hit AA and have time in AA, you kind of more so know or have an idea of what they could be. The variable range isn't as big. And speaking on like Andy Azkar, right? Or not even Andy. I'll even throw this back to Sadon, right? We kind of mentioned, I feel like it was a whole thing throughout Sadon's minor league career. If the bat develops, he's could be a 5-tool guy, right? If the bat develops, he's an all-star caliber center fielder, right? as much as Sadon's bat has developed, Sadon's not the best hitter in the league or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, he's hit very well this year, but Sadon's not, I guess like Sadon was never a top 10 prospect in the sport. He was never, his bat isn't, I guess an easy comp would be PCA, because PCA's got like a 150 weighted runs created plus this year or something stupid like that. He's not that. But like I said, he made the All-Star team this year. He's one of the best center fielders in baseball. And you look at that, and what if the Red Sox were to trade that away when he was in Greenville for maybe, a rental starter, or you know what I mean? Or maybe a guy with a year or two of control, but, is a good MLB guy, but not great, right? And now look what Sadon's turned into. That's the risk you run when trading these guys. Obviously, not every prospect's going to pan out. But if you have an entire farm system, right, of guys, some guys are going to be where you thought they are. Some guys aren't going to hit expectations. Some guys are going to exceed expectations. But all in all, it works itself out. And if you have faith in your minor league system and in your job of developing players, which it seems like the Red Sox very much do, you might be more inclined to take that gamble and hold on to those guys like Azkar, like Justin Gonzales, like Franklin Primera, because you believe you can develop them and get them to that next step in their development phase, right? And so we kind of touch a little bit on deadline. Like, I don't see any of those guys getting moved, right? Because go touch on Andy Azkar. A week like this for Andy Azkar is what you dream on, right? You look at this week and you go 7 for 21, 2 homers, a triple, 2 doubles, 5 runs batted in, only 3 strikeouts, 2 walks, right? You look at that and you go, oh, like that's the kind of week a top prospect has at a level where they're good for that level, right? And like I said, he's only 19 years old. He doesn't turn 20 until February. We kind of go for Azkar for him. You really kind of look at it, and in the month of July, in 16 games with Greenville in July, 250, 289 on-base. On-base has dipped a little bit, but he's got 625 slug. He's got 7 homers in 16 games this month. Like, yes, could the on-base be better? Yes, absolutely. Could he draw more walks? Yes. But right now, you're looking at a good defensive center fielder with solid speed who's hit 7 home runs in his last 16 games.
Yeah.
Those don't grow on trees, people. Like, they don't just pop up out of anywhere, right? This is not me saying never trade a prospect. It's not that. Look at the Garrett Crochet trade. Great trade. Win-win trade, in all honesty, right? But it goes back to like the Dave Dombrowski of it all, where it's okay to trade away prospects, but you've got to have guys behind to replenish the system, right? And if you trade away Gonzales, Azkar, Primera, all for big leaguers, cool. You only got 26 big league roster spots, though. Like, at some point, like, you're going to run, like, you can't keep everyone. And at the big league level, you can't keep everyone. And if you trade away all your top prospects, it's kind of hard to replenish them all at once, right? You go back to the Dave Dombrowski era. He was great at, making moves to help the big league team. It led them to a World Series and the most wins in a season in franchise history. But then you also look at 2019 and you look at that trade deadline, and the best they could do is Andrew Kastner. Like, and I'm not saying that, that's like this is not me saying hoard all your prospects. But when you trade, you want to trade out of positions of strength too. And you look at a guy like Andy Azkar, there's nothing that comps to him in the system. There's no one we can look at and go, oh, and if Andy Azkar gets traded, this guy's replacing Andy Azkar in the system, right? That's not there. You trade away Arias, who legitimately could be a big league player for you for the next 10 years if all goes right. Like, who's the next guy in the system who's going to step up and break out? Be like, yes, you have your guys like your Godbouts, your Mason Whites, etc. But is it enough? Is it worth it to trade away Arias? Right? Because like I said, you only got 26 big league roster spots. If you put too many damn good players on your big league roster, you're not going to have enough spots, one, for other big league players that you might need or fit roles better, or two, you're going to trade away all your prospects and you're going to be stuck with what, you might be good for 2-3 years with all those guys, but what happens when they all want money now and you can't pay them all? That's why you look at the Red Sox team now and having Roman and Marcelo and even Sadon's still cheap and Caleb Durbin's cheap, right? Carlos Narvaez's cheap, right? Connor Wong even, right? Backup catcher, he's not making a ton of money. Peyton Tolley, Connolly Early, obviously, before getting traded. Curtis Meadows cheap, right? He's on around league minimum contract. Jake Bennett, right? Those guys are so important. Having guys like that are so important because it allows you to go out, trade for Crochet and extend him. Go sign a Ranger Suarez. You know what? Sonny Gray's making a shit ton of money, but you know what? Yes, the Cardinals are going to eat some of that money, but you know what? We can go get him because we have money available, right? It's the big picture, right? It's not just trading him away for a big leaguer. You also have to, yes, Breslow says he's not concerned about winning or losing trades. He needs to make the team better. True, but he's also not going to make a stupid trade just for the sake of making a trade. In some ways, we saw it last year with Dustin May, where they scrambled, didn't have anything, and they just threw shit against the wall and hoped the Dodgers would take it, and they did because they had to throw a bunch of shit against the wall in terms of value-wise. They had to trade Tibbs and Earhart away just to get Dustin May on a rental. You don't want to be in a spot like that, right? So yeah, he's not afraid to lose a trade. He wants to, but he's also willing to. But he's also not going to do something stupid just for the sake of making a trade because look at how that damn Dustin May trade turned out, which is also kind of funny because Dustin May hasn't been bad this year. Just fucking figures. Our luck. But no, in all honesty, there's a reason those, also, I really do want to say this. This is part of the reason why we don't, when we say we don't like the trade deadline here on this show necessarily, just because odds are when prospects getting traded away, it could be a guy we like, but also too is, we do cover the minor league system, as you've heard all episode and every single minor league show we do. In some ways, it also affects us a little bit differently because these are guys that we come to know and love, right? Because we're talking about them week in, week out, right? That's not to say we don't want them to make the big league team better. Obviously, we do. But, we are going to react a little bit differently if Andy Azekar is traded than your traditional. If let's say on Nesson, they start talking about or NBC Sports Boston, or whatever the network is, the station is, they start talking about the Red Sox because they traded away a 19-year-old Andy Azekar for a big leaguer, right? The reaction there is going to be much different than our reaction because we're going to be like, yeah, it's nice to get the big leaguer, but damn, we really didn't want Andy Azekar to go. We really think he can become something really good. The reaction on a Nesson or NBC Sports Boston is going to be, oh, they just traded some guy. This is the exaggerated version of it. They traded some guy who's in Greenville for a big leaguer. Everyone be happy. They got a big leaguer for nothing. Obviously, it's not nothing, but you get the point I'm making, right? But it does make sense. They shouldn't trade Andy Azekar for the sake of trading Andy Azekar. Now, if the Reds were to come with Ellie De La Cruz and say, hey, we'll take Andy Azekar and a couple other guys that are below him value-wise for Ellie De La Cruz, yes, you take it. Don't be stupid. There's no such thing as an untouchable player just because the Dodgers should come walk in and say, hey, we're going to give you Shohei Ohtani and we're going to pay all his contract. Do you want him? Duh, no shit. You trade away anyone for that, right? That's also not realistic, right? Realistically untouchable guys, Arias, Ianson, and probably those three, realistically. And when I say realistically untouchable, it means what you're going to get for them most likely isn't worth trading them, right? Now, if someone blows your socks off and is, or someone really believes in those guys and is willing to take them, is willing to give up more than what you realistically think you should, if someone's willing to give up more than what they're worth and what even you think, and even more than you thought you were going to could even get from them, okay, yeah, you consider it, right? But realistically, odds are you're not going to get someone who makes it worthwhile to trade those guys. And so that's kind of where we are, too, in that sense, with Justin Gonzales, with Andy Azekar. That's why when we kind of, this time of year is a little bit, and also, too, Hunter and I do want to touch on it a little bit too. There are guys in the organization where, I won't say it publicly, but there are a couple guys, in all honesty, I kind of hope get traded. Not because I don't like them, but because they might be, if they get traded, they could go to a better opportunity. A la Hunter Dobbins, right? We love Hunter Dobbins, friend of the show. But what is he going to do with the Red Sox when they have Tolley, they had Early? Hell, look what Jake Bennett's done this year, right? Where was Hunter Dobbins going to fit into the picture? Like, Justin Garcia would have loved to keep, but like, where's he going to fit in, right? Dude's totally blocked. He'd be in Worcester all year, right? With nowhere to go. So you go get Yohan Oviedo for him. I know Oviedo hasn't totally worked out yet, but like, and also for Justinson, he gets to go to Pittsburgh where he has a chance to play at the big league level, something he very likely wouldn't have gotten with the Red Sox this year, right? So when I say that, I'm not going to say any names, right? But there are certain guys in the system where I look at, and I know Hunter too, you can think, there's probably a couple you can think of where you look at them and you go, they might have a better chance elsewhere, right? And if you can make your team better and give your guy another chance, or not another chance, but a better chance, not only are you doing right by your team and making your team better, you're also doing in some ways right by the player, right? And I joke sometimes and I somewhat joke and be like, never trade Alan Castro. I don't care who you get for him. Don't move him, right? But like, if there's a big league team who believes in Alan Castro and is going to be like, yeah, you're a next outfielder up if something happens to one of our guys, and like, I'd almost rather see him there than be stuck in Worcester for this year, probably next year, probably forever if everything goes right for the Red Sox. Because if everything goes right for the Red Sox, it's Roman, Cedon, Willier in your outfield for probably the next 10 damn years. Maybe not 10, but you get the point, right? And unfortunately, as much as I love Alan Castro, odds are he's not breaking into that if everything goes right, if most things go right for the Red Sox, not even everything, right? And I'm not saying trade Alan Castro, but if they moved him, it wouldn't be something where I'd look at and go, this is BS, whatever. In all honesty, like, could even be good for him, right? Because he might have a chance at being a big leaguer. You look at I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Kyle Harrison's a perfect example of that, right? Moving to Milwaukee, you get Caleb Durbin, who helps your big league team. Kyle Harrison's blocked by everyone in front of him, right?
Yeah.
What was he going to do for the Red Sox, right? Like, he was blocked. He was behind Early and Tolley on the pecking order, right? Like, send him to Milwaukee. Quinn Priester the same exact way, right? Same exact thing with Quinn Priester, right? They didn't have really an opportunity in Boston. You go get value for them, and you give the player a chance too, right? Things like that. Cool. And I think the both of us will tell you we're cool with trades like that, right? Because as much as we'd love to keep players we like, we also do recognize, like, you want them to have a chance to get to the big leagues. And if they're in a spot, especially when they get to the high minors where they're totally blocked, you're not helping the player either, right? It's one of the, I don't want to say concerns. It's one of the things for me, like, if the Red Sox, you don't trade for a mediocre shortstop this deadline. If you get a shortstop, it's because you're getting a guy. You're getting an Abrams, a Neto. I know people are starting to float Ellie's name around. I don't necessarily believe it, but like, if he's available, yeah, go after him, try it, right? If you get a shortstop, you're getting one of those type of guys, right? You're getting an.
I don't think they're going after anybody mediocre. They haven't been linked to mediocre.
Exactly, but you get what I'm saying, though. Like, you don't go and Otto Lopez. I even think this year really is all-star level this year. But like, you're not going after, I don't know, who's like a good but not great shortstop. I'm like trying to think off the top of my head. Like, or hell, I'll even go this far. I don't like the Francisco Lindors of the world. Don't make any sense to me. Because at his age,
but the argument for that would be you're probably not giving up much for him.
True. No, well, yes, but like, more so what I mean is the Francisco Lindor's, like, in a vacuum is what I'm saying. Not like Lindor with like the contract, the Mets take cover money, you're probably not giving up. But like, your Lindor type of player where he's over 30, he's probably not going to get better, right? And yes, Lindor still is a great player, but like, you're in now he's under contract for 5 years. Lindor's probably not the best comp. I'm trying to think of like, it was like just like an averagely good shortstop, or like Jacob Wilson this year, not Jacob Wilson last year, Jacob Wilson this year, who's around a league average hitter, right? That's kind of, you're not going to block Arias, potentially Meyer down the road for someone like that. And I say this year specifically because last year he was good. This year he's been not as good. But yeah, your guys like your Azikar, Justin Gonzales, and Primera even, like, they're too valuable in some ways. Because the upside, you can really dream on that. Other than that, we're over the 2-hour mark now. Where Yoenis Cespedes had a pair of homers. He's really interesting. I was looking at his numbers. I think his weighted runs created plus is actually under 100 this year, which was kind of shocking. It's a lot of power and not a ton else, but also too at second base. There's not a lot of. It's a traditionally non-power position. He's he's brought a lot of power. And this is not me saying he's had a bad year by any means. I think he's been really good. It's weird how that kind of works itself out. At least that was the last I checked of it. I don't know. This week might have probably pushed it in the other back towards 100, if not over his weighted runs created plus. But it was something that I was looking at. I'm like, kind of interesting. It feels like it would be higher than that. But Cespedes 4 for 17, like I said, pair of homers. He also had a double. He over the course of this year, he's got an 802 OPS now, so his OPS is back over 800. He's got 18 homers. He's driven in 56 runs. He's really turned it around, and kind of go back to development not being linear. Yoenis Cespedes, right? More proof of that. Development not being linear. So it kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It shows that sometimes you just need patience, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, Cespedes, he's still in Greenville. He still has a long way to go to the big leagues, obviously. But between 2024 Cespedes and where we thought he was going to be to 2025, which was a little bit disappointing by what you were probably hoping for, and then this year he bounces back, right? It does kind of it shows the ups and downs of a prospect's development, and kind of their lifespan as a big league, as a baseball player, professional baseball player. It's not always straight up, right? It can be up, it can be down, it can be anywhere in between. And so Cespedes obviously having the year he's had this year has been nice to see. Obviously the 18 homers is going to catch the headlines. It is nice to see him, like I said, kind of bounce back from kind of the rougher year he had last year.
Yeah. If there was going to be another fight in Greenville this week, it was after Justin Gonzales got hit with that pitch, and then on the very next at bat, Yoenis Cespedes hit a home run that went to Albert Feliz territory. He hit it on the roof, and that was
we want to break a window, man. Real glass. Come on, break the window.
That was the moment where I thought, if there's going to be another fight, it's going to be now with Justin Gonzales waiting at home for him. And they did, obviously they had they hugged and everything. And I thought, if there's any possibility of a fight, it's going to be right now with the two of them celebrating for maybe a little bit longer than they should have. But obviously nothing happened. But yeah, he's been fantastic this year. The power is very real with him. Outside of him, Antonio Anderson just continues to hit. He snapped an 8-game hitting streak on Sunday, but he went 7 for 20 this week. He had a double. He had a triple. He had an RBI. So coming into this year, Antonio Anderson had just 2 career triples. This year he has 3. He was hitting 98 going into at the end of April. I don't have the number in front of me, but it was he was hitting, I think it was 170 as of June 11th or something like that. And he's up to a 270 batting average, 364 on base, 444 slugging, 9 doubles, 3 triples, 6 home runs, 30 RBI, 32 steals, 32 runs scored, 1 stolen base. So yeah, it's repeating myself here because I feel like I've talked about him every week now for a while, but it's because he just continues to be one of the best bats in Greenville's lineup. He's been doing it every week. And I think it was the at bat that he hit the triple. Before he hit the triple, I think it was Dan Scott, one of Greenville's announcers, mentioned Antonio Anderson's a switch hitter, and he's actually hitting. This was before the at bat, so obviously the numbers have changed a little bit. But he was hitting like 269 from the right side and 270 from the left side. So like he doesn't have an issue hitting from either side, which is really nice. And he was the only, or I'm sorry, him and Gerardo Rodriguez were the only two Greenville hitters to play in every game this week, position players that had play in every game this week. So like it's incredible to think about. Like he was the guy in the Greenville lineup that was getting like 1, maybe 2 games a week at the start of the year. And now he's become so valuable to the team that he is in the lineup every single day. It's just been such an incredible turnaround.
Yeah, I forgot to do it off kind of the top. To really try and do it at the top, but the home runs this week in Greenville, obviously they had 8 in total. Gonzales, Asgard, Cespedes 2 apiece, and then Isaiah Jackson and Ronnie Hernandez had 1 apiece. Those are kind of the home runs there. The other thing, you mentioned Gerardo Rodriguez. He walked 6 times this week. It's kind of a fun one there. Which are on the 6 walks. Other than that, Hunter, anything else on the position player side of things? All right, cool. We're going to bump over to the pitching now. Greenville in their pitching. I want to start kind of – I guess I'll kind of touch on them a little bit as like a duo sort of. And when I say duo, it's not like me being like duo in terms of like it's not I don't know. It's not like a duo like being like, oh, like I guess how like Ianson and Witherspoon kind of were seen as earlier this year as kind of like the 2 big guys in the same class. It's not exactly the same. Now both of them throw lefty, so I guess if you want to kind of go that way, but both guys this year have pitched in both Salem and Greenville, and it's Devin Futrell and Dylan Brown. They both went at least 6 innings. So Futrell went 6 2/3 with 5 hits, just the 1 run, 9 strikeouts and 1 walk. Brown went 6 innings, 4 hits, just 2 earned runs, 7 strikeouts, no walks. Between the two of them, that's 12 2/3 innings between the two of them with only 3 runs. And you look at kind of the two of them this year, 3.59 ERA for Brown this year, 4.06 for Futrell. Futrell, 4.59 ERA in Greenville, 4.14 for Brown in Greenville. The numbers aren't like crazy by any means, but the both of them have had like a lot of like I felt like a lot of good starts this year. Like they've Futrell has had his fair share of rougher starts. The month of July had been kind of rough for him up until this past start. But like you look at his last 2 starts in June, 7 innings of no-run ball and 6 innings of no-run ball, right? So like Futrell's had some really good starts this year. And you kind of look at Dylan Brown and, a little bit similar for him. The month of July wasn't the nicest to him. I mean, he's been better and he's had a better July than Futrell. But this past start, 6 innings, 2 earned. The first start of July, 6 innings, 3 runs, but only 2 earned. You go back into June, he had a 7-inning outing with 11 strikeouts and no runs. So like they've both had some like really, really high highs this year. And so, both those guys not like super high prospects. Brown's 22, Futrell's 23. Futrell was a 2024 pick in the 10th round. Brown was last year in the 8th round. So like I said, nothing like they're not like crazy prospects or anything by, prospect rankings measures or anything, but they both had like starts this year where they've been really good. And so I think the biggest thing for them is just finding the consistency, because we've seen them, when they, like I said, they've had some stellar starts, but then they have, the bad start here and there that kind of offsets the stellar start, right? So it'd just be nice to see them, both of them kind of honest and all, like the rest of this year, just be more consistent, right? If you can consistently go 5 innings, 5 or 6, but even if it's just 5 and you're only giving up 2 runs, eventually like that adds up, right? You're getting really good starts. And I know 6 innings is the barrier for a quality start. I get it. But if a guy goes 5 innings and gives up 2 runs, I think you're just as happy with that as if it's whether it's a qualified, even though it's not considered a quality start, right? So like those guys, and those guys have proven they can do it, and like I said, can do even better. I just like to see those guys have a little bit more consistency over the last couple months of the year. But like I said, their highs have been really high this year and really impressive.
Yeah, I'll talk about Calvin Bickerstaff. He went 4 1/3, gave up 1 hit, didn't give up any runs, didn't walk anybody, struck out 4. He's kind of bounced around this year. He's pitched in single A, double A, high A, 4.17 ERA, 1.23 WHIP, 245 batting average against in 58 1/3 innings. Obviously, he's back in high A right now, but 49 strikeouts, 18 walks in 58 1/3 innings. So, like, obviously, not a massive strikeout guy, but he's not walking people too much either. And just like this was just obviously a phenomenal outing for him. It's good to see him eat innings like that out of the bullpen. Something just a valuable asset to have, especially in the minor leagues when you're going to have a lot of games where you're not having starters going deep into games. There's a lot of times where you're going to have a starter give you, 3 innings or less. And you're going to need someone out of the bullpen to pull something out of their ass for you. And Bickerstaff did that for Greenville this week. But yeah, he's been consistently really solid for the Red Sox minor leagues over the last 3 seasons. But he's not overly flashy. The numbers have never been like spectacular, but they've always been solid. So he's not really someone we ever really talk about too much on here, just because he, again, just never really has like those big standout starts. It's not like he ever has a week. For one thing, he's a bullpen guy, so he usually doesn't have, Bickerstaff went 5 innings and got 9 strikeouts. So it's just usually not someone we're going to plan to talk about too much. But 4 1/3 shutout innings, you have to talk about him that week.
Yeah, I just want to Alex Bouchard and Jojo Ingracia added scoreless 3-inning starts to the mix in Greenville. And then, so between the 2 of those guys and then Bickerstaff, Brooks, and McShane all having scoreless outings out of the bullpen, that's a total of what was that, like it's like almost 15 innings scoreless between those guys. I was trying to do quick math in my head really quickly. It's about 15 innings though. Might be 14, maybe, I don't know, but that's you take that, right?
Yeah.
You take as many scoreless innings as you can get, but those guys kind of all coming out and doing that. That's nice. That is nice to see. We're gonna bump to Salem now.
I do just also want to throw out Trenner O'Donnell made his high A debut. 1 inning, 1 hit,
Jake's
2 unearned runs, a walk, no strikeouts, but it was his high A debut. So I did just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. Yep. Jake's long lost cousin, as we all know. Now we're gonna bump to Salem. Offensive side of things. Claver Salazar decided to just go off this week. 8 for 13, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, 5 walks, just the 3 strikeouts. That was by far the biggest week OPS wise. He had a 1953 OPS this week. Elon Fernandez, Justin Berry, Andres Zapata, Luis Andujar, and Andrew Musset and Adonis Guzman all had homers. They all had just 1 homer outside of Salazar hitting a pair of them. Kind of the other big performers this week. Fernandez went 4 for 10 with a double and a homer. Barry went 3 for 10 with 2 doubles and a homer. Primera 6 for 14 with 2 doubles, walked twice, only struck out once. And then Opata 9 hits on 21 at bats, a double and a homer, 7 RBIs. Also stole 2 bases this week. got him to the 40 stolen base mark on the year. Friend of the show as well. It's nice to see. So all those guys had OPSs over 1,000 this week in Salem. And then I'll also just throw in Skylar King. He went 7 for 19 with a double as the only extra base hit. He walked once, but he didn't strike out at all this week, which is nice to see. Hunter, anyone specific you want to touch on?
I'll let you go first because I have a couple notes. So,
all right. Well, I kind of already touched on Franklin Primera, kind of as we kind of got into the whole deadline discussion and whatnot. But I do want to touch on Skylar King, and kind of the reason I brought him up is, we've talked about him before with kind of the big crop of really good defenders in center field or just the outfield in general in the system. Like Nelly, we might as well just name our defensive player our defensive player of the year award after Nelly Taylor at this rate, right? With how much he's been getting it. Skylar King, it is a little bit unfortunate in some ways because even though it's a defensive award that we give out in some ways too, like you also have to be decent with the bat to really get recognized just from like a fan voting perspective on the basis of that. If you're hitting 100 and are only playing 3 days a week, it doesn't really matter how good your defense is. It's kind of, you're not really going to be noticed, especially if you're in a level like single A. That's not what Skylar King's been doing. He hasn't had the craze of years. 239, 323, 398 slug, 721 OPS. The upside is he has 25 extra base hits, 14 doubles, a triple, and 10 homers. He's walked 31 times. He struck out 57 times in 77 games. He's been overall, like he's had some success. He's had some struggles. The defense will always play with him. I do wonder where organizationally they view him as compared to like when they had Nelly Taylor at kind of the same point, first year after being drafted. And that's not like a shot at, it's not like trying to be a shot. I'm just interested in like how the org views Skylar King, especially like I said, in comparison to where Nelly Taylor was at the time, because Nelly Taylor's really kind of turned himself into being that kind of guy where he's an elite defender. And I know Nelly Taylor's had his share of struggles this year at the plate. But, having that kind of level of defense is, it's going to carry you. It's going to carry you. It just is. We see it all the time with elite defenders who even sometimes get to the big leagues. In the big leagues, they can barely hit 200. But because they're great defenders, especially at premier positions like center field, shortstop, catcher, right? We see great defenders go all the way to the big leagues on their defense, right? In some ways, Sung-Chae Chang got to the big leagues last year because of his defense, right? Because let's become like, and I mean, a lot of those guys you end up seeing, they kind of get DFA bounce around a little bit just because they don't have a true home in terms of like, because the bat's not big league ready, but the defense flies them up through the minors. And I am interested to see how the Red Sox handle someone like a Skylar King with the defense, right? Because you could make the argument, defensively, Skylar King's, ready for, you could jump multiple levels defensively, right? But obviously he's not going to with the bat. And I mean, and nobody's going to with the bat, right? But like defensively, I think you could stick Skylar King in Worcester and you wouldn't notice a big difference, right? You wouldn't really notice the difference between the guys they have there, right? In all honesty, Skylar King might outshine some of those guys defensively. Like Nelly Taylor's the same way. Like if you stuck Nelly Taylor in the outfield in the big leagues right now, defensively, I don't think you'd have any worries. Yeah, the bat would be an issue, it would be a concern, right? But like Skylar King's a little bit the same way. So I am interested in seeing, like I said, where the org views him. He is 22, like I said, he coming out of West Virginia. I do wonder if there is a point in time this year where they do go, you know what? The overall numbers aren't crazy, but we are going to bump you up to Greenville and see what that looks like. Especially too with the deadline kind of coming around, odds are at some point people are going to be getting promotions. I would assume at some point like Justin Gonzales might be getting a move up to Portland. Not necessarily soon, but I mean at some point this year, I would assume at the very least I'd like to see him get a cup of coffee in AA, right? So, you know, I'd like to see Skylar King at some point get to get to Greenville at some point this year.
Yeah.
Just like to see where they kind of view it. I'd love to know where they view it organizationally, just like I said, because the defense is really good.
Yeah. Okay, so Andrew Zapata, you said he had the 2 steals that got him to 41 on the season. That is a modern day Salem record. I don't really know what modern day is, but they just kept saying it. So congratulations to him. Adonis Guzman hit a 462-foot home run this week. It was absolutely destroyed. I don't know why. I just did baby speak for a second there. Justin Berry hit his first single A home run this week. Franklin Primera, another ridiculous week for him. He's been phenomenal the last couple weeks. It's been awesome to see. He seems like 100% the real deal. He's just been hitting the absolute piss out of the ball. But in extra innings, I want to say it was on Saturday. Yeah, on Saturday, he left the game on a play that didn't seem to involve him. It was really hard to tell. Andrew Zapata tried to make a play like crashing into the wall in right field, and a run scored. And then on the next pitch, Franklin Primera like called a timeout and then took a couple steps towards the pitcher and then put his hands on his knees and took his mask off. And then the trainer came out and like Franklin Primera just left the game with the catcher and then he didn't play on Sunday. So my initial joke was like, oh man, I wonder if Franklin Primera like pooped himself and just like was like, I gotta leave the game. But then he didn't play on Sunday. So I was like, man, I hope Franklin Primera is okay. Like, I don't know what the heck happened because like it didn't seem like he was involved in any type of play. So I don't know what happened there. And then
the hope is it was maybe just like a cramp or something, and then he was already scheduled to have a day off on
maybe.
Monday.
And then everybody's obviously, I feel like Luis Andujar and Cliver Salazar have been getting a ton of hype lately because they have been absolutely mashing, deservedly so. I feel like Ian Fernandez has kind of been flying under the radar because of that, though. And again, Luis Andujar, Cliver Salazar have been crushing baseballs. Ian Fernandez, though, he's hitting 302 in July, and he has an OPS over 1,000 in July. So he's just been absolutely phenomenal. And I want to bring a little bit of light to that just because I feel like, again, we've talked about it the last couple of weeks where we've talked about how Salem's offense is kind of non-existent. And then over the last couple of weeks, Franklin Primera has arrived and been fantastic. Andrew Zapata has been pretty solid all year. Cliver Salazar has turned into an absolute demon. Luis Andujar has been phenomenal. And Avinson Pinto has been really good lately. And now Ian Fernandez has turned into whatever this is. So, Salem's offense has been great. And I feel like he deserves some flowers.
Definitely. The offense has really started to kind of turn things around. Anything else, though, on the position player side of things, Hunter? All right, we're going to bump over to the pitching side of things in Salem. Scoreless outings from Ethan Walker and Nicholas De La Cruz out of the bullpen. Walker, 2 innings, scoreless in his 1 appearance. De La Cruz, 2 scoreless outings, 2 2/3 innings between the two. Williams Rodriguez also had a scoreless third of an inning where he got a save. So shout out for him. He got a save. He pitched only a third of an inning. Jose Bayo went 5 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 4 strikeouts, just the 2 walks, and did hit a guy. But 5 scoreless innings, and he's obviously kind of the last piece of the Devers trade that's still in the organization. If you want to kind of treat it, you could be like, oh, Caleb Durbin, because Kyle Harrison was the main piece in that deal heading to Milwaukee. But like, if you want to go got the 4 that you got from the Giants, Jose Bayo is the last of those 4 still in the Red Sox organization. He's got a 2.55 ERA and 49 1/3 innings this year. And that's over 14 appearances, 8 starts, all of them in Salem. Obviously not a huge strikeout guy, only 38 strikeouts, but he's also only walked 24. Like I said, 2.55 ERA, just solid arm. The upside for him, I do wonder what the upside really is, just because actually he doesn't strike out a ton of guys. But still, regardless, nice to see him pitching well. The big story, though, here in Salem was the single-A debut of Sadbiel Delzine. 4 innings, just 3 hits, 2 runs, only 1 of them earned. Struck out 6, did walk 2 and hit a guy, but still a very, very solid first ever outing in affiliated ball for Delzine. I'll hand it over to you, Hunter. Thoughts on his start?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This is like the only thing I want to talk about here. Sadbiel Delzine was so much fun to watch. Better than advertised. A little iffy on the command at times. There were a couple at bats that just kind of completely got away from him, where it was just 4-pitch walk, or he hit one batter. He did give up a home run to the first batter he faced, but it also was a guy hitting 300 with like 11 homers on the year. So it was like, all right, that's
He's
fine
also only 18 years old and doesn't
Yeah,
turn 19
yeah.
till
He's
January.
also yes.
It's also that.
But he at no point in the game was it like, all right, this guy shouldn't be here. This was a clearly very good pitcher with a very good fastball and absolutely filthy breaking stuff. The curveball made hitters look bad. The fastball was running up on people. He dotted a couple pitches a couple times, which was really good to see because again, the command at points looked lost, which was really like the only negative that you could point to at any point in the game. But he has a lot of fun with messing with timing. He will get into his motion and then sit there for 4 or 5 seconds, and then at other times he will just immediately pitch it. So he seems to love to really mess with the timing of hitters. So I feel like he will be someone that people will very much love to watch whenever he is on the mound. Yeah, just this was easily one of the more fun watches of the season for me. I'm immediately after he was taken out of the game. First off, very surprised that he got up to like 75 pitches. I know he was throwing that many pitches in the FCL, but still, I kind of was expecting this to be, his first single A game. He's going to get treated with kid gloves. He was not. So that was very shocking to me. But yeah, the second he was taken out of the game, I was immediately like, all right, when's the next Delzine game? I'm ready for it. Let's get him back out there. Yeah, that was extremely fun. And I'm ready for Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or whenever it is. Let's get to it.
Yeah, so he's had a very good year. This kind of be a good kind of segue into kind of talking about the FCL season, which is now officially wrapped up. 2.68 ERA for him between in the 11 appearances in the FCL, and then obviously his debut in Salem. His FCL numbers: 39 and 2/3 innings, 2.72 ERA, 43 strikeouts, just 18 walks. Obviously, it's the FCL. You do have to take it a little bit with a grain of salt, obviously, but very impressive. I mean, the other guy also say like Franklin Primera, 427, 549, 718, 1267 OPS, 8 homers. In 32 games for him. Like, that's a guy where you look at like the numbers, you're like, those numbers are really good. You still have to take them with a grain of salt, regardless of how good those numbers are, because they were obscene. You gotta take them with a grain of salt, though, just because it is the FCL. So like the thing with Delzine, like the numbers he had were very good in the FCL. Like I mentioned, 2.72 ERA, especially too when everyone else who pitched there regularly. The next lowest ERA was Yomar De La Rosa with a 3.38 ERA in 24 innings. And 4 of the runs he allowed were unearned. And then the next was Jackson Gamboa at a 3.91 ERA. He pitched 23 innings, gave up 10 earned runs, 4 unearned runs as well. And then it was, when you get to the 30 inning threshold in the FCL, they only had 3 guys pass it. The other 2 were an 8.31 and 10.20 ERA. The guy with the second most strikeouts in the FCL was Williams Montero, 29 innings, 40 strikeouts, but he had a 4.66 ERA, right? So you do have to take it with a grain of salt, but when you kind of look at all the other numbers in the FCL, you look at Delzine's numbers and you go, okay, no, like those numbers are really good. And the similar thing with Primera on the hitting side of things, like those are really damn good numbers. Harold Rivas, really, really good season. 241, 343, 429, 772 OPS. Doesn't blow your socks off, but in 46 games, 6 doubles, 4 triples, 6 homers. The 6 homers were second on the team with, I don't know if it's Jose or Josue, Josue. I'm never going to figure it out. probably. It's fine. Brito, he had in 47 games, he had 12 doubles, 2 triples, 6 homers. He stole 10 bases. He had a 904 OPS. He walked 34 times and only struck out 47 times in 47 games. Obviously, Primera's numbers were absurd in the FCL, but those are kind of where it was. Obviously, Luis Andujar's numbers were crazy when he was there. He was only there for 15 games, though. Outside of that, I feel like those are kind of the big guys to touch on. I am missing. Dorian Soto didn't have the greatest time in the FCL. 212, 323, 263, 586 OPS. No homers. He missed the last 2 weeks of the season with knee soreness. He did steal 9 bases. He wasn't. He struggled, but it's also in some ways it's the FCL. As much as you take a guy's success with a grain of salt, sometimes you have to take struggles with a grain of salt too. Also in the sense of Soto too, first year stateside, right? There is that, and then also too, just like that knee soreness, missing the last 2 weeks. How much was that affecting him? Was it affecting him throughout the year? We don't know, right? So you also got to take it with a grain of salt too when guys struggle a little bit. But that's pretty much all the FCL stuff. It's pretty much all the FCL stuff. I'm pretty sure. So with that, we are at the 2 hour and 40-minute mark. Typically, we do kind of a firm system frenzy, but we are really late into the episode. So we are going to skip with that one. We will bring it back next week. Will likely be a trade deadline edition of it. As I mentioned, deadline live stream. Myself and Jordan will be live. Plan is at noon and hopefully going up until 7 o'clock. Anything else, Hunter?
No, I think I'm good.
Alrighty. Well, we're going to wrap it up. As always, thanks for tuning in to the Pesky Report. This was your minor league show. Next week, we will be your first Pesky Report show after the trade deadline. It should be a fun, first regularly scheduled show after the trade deadline, I should say. Should be a fun one. Stay tuned. Listen to all our other shows. Come back next week. Listen to us next week, and we will see you next time.
Like, this is called the Pesky Report. Like.